Wah! Dad, I'm so tired. Can we take a break? Xingqian panted heavily, barely able to. Xingqian was only 10 this year, a third-grade primary school student. It was the National Day holiday, and with nothing to do at home, he spent his days playing marbles with a few friends. Today, Xingqian's father Lei Baixian was going up the mountain to cut firewood. He casually called Xingqian along to the mountain to get some exercise and loosen up his bones. Lei Baixian glanced at Xingqian's small shoulders, which were carrying a wooden pole as thick as a thumb and over 6 meters long. Xingqian had searched all over the mountain to find it, intending to bring it back and turn it into a pair of nunchucks. Lei Baixian shook his head helplessly and said, "All right, well, rest here for a while." No sooner had he spoken than Xingqian plopped down on the ground with his whole weight. Suddenly, Xingqian sprang up from the ground, letting out a scream. "Ah, Dad, my butt hurts so much." He kept crying out, "Ah." His shrill screams echoed through the valley, piercing the sky. The birds in the surrounding trees were startled and flew about in panic, while the small animals on the ground bolted in every direction. Lei Baixian had just set down the wood on his shoulder when he suddenly heard Xingqian's loud scream and jumped in fright. He rushed toward Xingqian anxious and cried, "Xingqian, what's wrong? Don't scare your dad." Xingqian's butt hurt so badly that he gritted his teeth and spoke in broken phrases, "Dad, my butt really hurts, please take a look." Lei Baixian hurriedly looked at Xingqian's small butt. He saw a strange thumb-sized object stuck to the right side, and the fabric of Xingqian's pants there already showed faint streaks of blood, which gave him another fright. Lei Baixian quickly and gently pulled down Xingqian's pants to examine him. On the boy's little butt was a wound about 1 centimeter wide and half a centimeter deep, as if a piece of flesh had been gouged out. Staring at such a gruesome-looking wound, Lei Baixian immediately began thinking about how to stop the bleeding. Suddenly, Lei Baixian noticed in surprise that the wound was merely reddened and no longer bleeding outward. He let out a long breath of relief, wondering in his mind if Xingqian's platelets were unusually powerful. Gritting his teeth, Xingqian asked, "Dad, how does my butt look?" "It hurts so much." Lei Baixian replied casually, "Son, your butt is fine now, though a piece of flesh is missing." Xingqian pulled a crying face. "Dad, don't tease me. How can it be fine if a piece of flesh is gone? It hurts like crazy." Lei Baixian suddenly grew smug. "Son, back in the day, your dad." He had not finished speaking. Xingqian immediately cut him off. "Dad, stop talking about back in the day. You've said that in front of me 623 times already. It's just that you killed a wild boar with your bare hands. Even Wu Song, who killed a tiger, doesn't keep bragging like you do all day. If you say back in the day again, your son is going to die from it." Lei Baixian said embarrassedly, "All right, son, I won't say it. Back in the day, your dad." Xingqian instantly cut in again, "Dad, there you go again. You just said you wouldn't, and you already forgot." Lei Baixian's weathered face flushed red as he stammered, slip of the tongue, son. "I just wanted to ask if your butt still hurts." Xingqian grumbled, "Dad, can't you see I'm sweating all over from the pain?" Suddenly, he noticed a strange object on the ground. Picking it up, he asked, "Dad, was this the thing that stabbed my butt just now?" Lei Baixian nodded. "Yes, son, that's the thing. Hand it to me so I can throw it away." As he spoke, he reached out his right hand toward Xingqian. All of a sudden, Xingqian felt as if this object were a part of his own body. Seeing his father's outstretched hand, he hurriedly stopped him. "Dad, don't you think this strange object looks very beautiful? It might be some kind of treasure. Please don't throw it away, Dad. Let your son keep it as a keepsake." Hearing this, Lei Baixian focused his attention on the strange object. In his mind, he wondered, just now that odd thing looked pitch black, so why does it seem transparent now? Could it really be a treasure? Then he said to Xingqian, "All right, son, I won't throw it away. You can keep it as a souvenir." Xingqian said happily, "Thank you, Dad." Lei Baixian asked with concern, "Xingqian, does your..." But still, Xingqian sensed his body and felt puzzled. How strange. It hurt so badly just now, but now it only hurts a little. Looking at his father's caring tone and eyes, his heart warmed. "Dad, it doesn't hurt anymore," he said. Though the pain had only lessened, he did not want his father to worry, so he could only claim it no longer hurt. Lei Baixian asked again with concern, "Son, let Dad carry you home." He squatted down as he spoke. "Come on, hop on." Xingqian felt a surge of warmth in his heart. "No need, Dad. My butt doesn't hurt now, I can still walk." Seeing his father's doubtful look, he jumped a few times. "Dad, see, I can still hop." Lei Baixian was startled by Xingqian's movements and quickly said, "Son, don't scare your dad, all right. Let me check again to see if the wound has opened or is oozing." Xingqian answered obediently, Dad." Lei Baixian quickly examined the wound on Xingqian's butt. Seeing that it was not bleeding, he let out a breath of relief and said lovingly, "All right, son, you can walk for now. If you really can't go on, you must call me, understand?" Xingqian felt warmth in his heart again. "Got it, Dad," he replied. After that, Lei Baixian and Xingqian ambled slowly back home. Xingqian had not forgotten his long wooden pole. He dragged it with one hand while the other pressed against his sore, but limping along behind his father in a comical manner. From time to time, Lei Baixian turned back to check on him. Neither Xingqian nor Lei Baixian knew that the strange object in Xingqian's pocket was undergoing a transformation. Inside the strange object, a tender childlike voice sounded, DNA recognition complete. Primary binding successful. System is scanning the host's body. Injury detected on host's body. Commencing repair. Xingqian was unaware that his body was being scrutinized. After a while, the milky voice rang out again from within the object. Host's wound repair complete. System is conducting fingerprint search. Fingerprint found initiating binding. Fingerprint binding successful. System is conducting retinal search. Retina found initiating binding. Retinal binding successful. Intermediate level binding complete. System is scanning the host's brainwaves. Host's brainwaves located. System is initiating ownership binding with host's brainwaves. Time passed. Brainwave binding successful. Advanced ownership binding between the cosmic battleship and host complete. System is searching for host's soul. A little more time passed. Host's soul located. Cosmic battleship is now binding with host's soul. More than 10 hours passed. It was now just after 1 o'clock in the morning and Xingqian's whole family was fast asleep. Once again, the milky childlike voice echoed from within the strange object. Soul binding between cosmic battleship and host successful. The cosmic battleship now truly belongs to the host. No sooner were the words spoken than Xingqian suddenly vanished from his room. Xingqian abruptly appeared inside the cosmic battleship. Within it, the tender childlike voice sounded, "Welcome, host, to your arrival." Xingqian had been sound asleep when he suddenly heard a child's voice. Half-dazed, he woke up and looked around. He froze for a moment, realizing that this was not his room, but some strange place. In front of Xingqian stood an enormous screen several times larger than the wall of his bedroom. On it, a 3 or 4-year-old child was smiling at him. When the child on the screen saw Xingqian looking his way, he hurriedly said, "Greetings, host." Xingqian, hearing the child on the screen call out to him, asked in puzzlement, "Little friend, are you talking to me?" The child replied happily, "Yes, host." Xingqian slapped his own head and cried out, "I'm not dreaming, am I? Someone on a screen is actually talking." The child said proudly, "Host, you are not dreaming. All of this is real." Hearing that it was not a dream, Xingqian raised his hand and slapped his own face hard. He then screamed, "Ah, damn, that hurts so much. This really isn't a dream." Xingqian asked the child on the screen in confusion, "Little friend, where is this place? How did I end up here, and can I still go back? If my dad and mom find out I'm missing, they'll be worried sick. Little friend, can you let me out?" The child on the screen tried to comfort him. "Host, please don't panic. Listen to my explanation first." Xingqian urged the child on the screen anxiously, "Little friend, hurry up and tell me." The child on the screen straightened his clothes and said, "Host, I'll explain now. This is the command room of a cosmic battleship. I am." Xingqian interrupted in astonishment. "Wait a second, little friend, did you just say I'm inside a cosmic battleship? Isn't that something that only exists in movies?" The child on the screen was displeased at being interrupted. "Host, I don't know what movies or television are. Could you please refrain from cutting me off? Wait until I've finished explaining, then you can ask questions, all right?" Xingqian replied, "All right, little friend." The child on the screen continued, "This is the command room of a cosmic battleship. I am the main brain of this battleship. This cosmic battleship is the very object that pierced your butt, and you are now inside that object. As for going out, you may do so at any time." Xingqian exclaimed, "Little friend, you're saying I'm inside that strange little object. It's so tiny. How can it hold a person?" The child on the screen said smugly, "Host, this cosmic battleship can grow larger or smaller and can even be stored inside its host's body." Xingqian asked in surprise, "Little friend, is it really that miraculous?" The child on the screen replied smugly, "I am the most formidable cosmic battleship of the universe's super civilization, the Kasei Empire." Xingqian asked in confusion, "Then how did you end up here?" The child explained, "Host, I snuck out while the researchers of the Kasei Empire were resting. Just as I escaped from the Kasei star, I was suddenly struck by a piece of debris and a spatial rift appeared out of nowhere. Right after I emerged from the rift, you happened to sit down on the ground, and I crashed into you, then recognized you as my master." Listening to the child's string of just happened coincidences, Xingqian thought to himself that it must have been arranged by the heavens, otherwise how could there be such perfect timing? Xingqian composed his thoughts and asked, "Little one, what is your name? I can't keep calling you little one forever." The child on the screen looked embarrassed. "Master, I haven't chosen a name yet. Please give me one." Xingqian studied the child on the screen, whose appearance was neither distinctly male nor female, and asked in puzzlement, "Then I'll give you a name. But are you a boy or a girl?" Suddenly the child on the screen transformed into a little girl and said proudly, "This is my true appearance. Am I pretty?" Xingqian stared in surprise as a little fairy appeared on the screen, a petite, exquisite girl dressed in pure white, with jade-like skin and long flowing hair. Her face was like carved pink jade, with a high nose, a small mouth, and a pair of lively large eyes framed by long lashes that blinked at Xingqian, making her seem irresistibly spirited and adorable. Ever since he was 5 years old, Xingqian had been deeply fond of flowers. By now he had collected many varieties at home along with all kinds of materials and information about them. The moment the little fairy appeared, Xingqian felt that she resembled a violet orchid, simple and unadorned yet suffused with a tempting fragrance that stirred pity and affection. Her temperament was like the orchid's scent. You could not refuse its delicate fragrance or overlook its quiet existence. From deep within her bones burst youthful vitality, blossoming in the wind into an enchanting charm that made one want to protect and nurture her with great care. Like the violet orchid, she was both flower and grass, possessing the vivid splendor of a blossom and the unyielding tenacity of a blade of grass. She was neither delicate nor affected. Even when facing blizzards and tempests, she would not lose her elegant nature, remaining just as radiant and bright. Simple yet unique, her distant fragrance seeped into one's heart, leaving a lasting impression and endless aftertaste impossible to reject or forget. Xingqian stared fixedly at the little one on the screen and hurriedly exclaimed, "Beautiful. Little fairy, you are truly too beautiful. From now on your name will be Xylan." Xylan clapped her small hands in delight and said excitedly to Xingqian, "Xylan is here. Thank you for bestowing this name upon me." Hearing the little fairy constantly address him as master, Xingqian felt as if he were abusing her. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Little Xylan, from now on call me brother Xingqian. Don't call me master anymore. If people hear it, they'll think I'm mistreating you." Xylan replied happily, "Got it, master." Xingqian protested, displeased, "Why are you still calling me master? Call me brother." Little Xylan stuck out her small tongue mischievously and said, "All right, brother." I just didn't react in time. Suddenly Xingqian thought of something and asked, "Little Xylan, what is this cosmic battleship called?" Xylan answered, "Brother, this cosmic battleship doesn't have a name yet." Xingqian asked in confusion, "Then does that mean this cosmic battleship already belongs to me?" Xylan said, "Brother, right now, everything on this cosmic battleship is yours, including me." After a brief consideration, Xingqian said, "Since this cosmic battleship is mine, little Xylan, I can't let my own ship go without a name." Xylan responded naturally, "Brother, since this cosmic battleship is now yours, you should give it a name." Xingqian thought for a moment and said, "Little Xylan, from now on this cosmic battleship will be called the Xingqian battleship." Xylan nodded and said, "All right, brother." Xylan will immediately designate the cosmic battleship as the Xingqian battleship. With that, she vanished from the screen. After a short while, Xylan suddenly reappeared on the screen. Xingqian asked hurriedly, "Little Xylan, is it done?" Xylan replied proudly, "Brother, the name has already been set. For me, that was far too easy." Xingqian laughed happily. "Haha, I have a cosmic battleship now." After pausing to think, he added, "Little Xylan, tell me what is currently on the Xingqian battleship and what functions it has." Xylan began her explanation. Brother, there are so many things. Let me introduce them to you. This Xingqian battleship can change size. At maximum, it can expand to its full original dimensions, over 1 million meters at its longest and more than 600,000 meters at its widest. At minimum, it can shrink down to 1 nanometer. She continued, "The Xingqian battleship also contains a dimensional space whose volume is 10 times that of the battleship itself. However, this dimensional space cannot be used to store living beings." Xingqian stared wide-eyed at little Xylan on the screen, then suddenly asked in confusion, "Little Xylan, you said the battleship can grow and shrink. When it shrinks, will I become extremely small as well?" Xylan replied a bit sheepishly, "Brother, I forgot to explain more clearly. The internal space of the Xingqian battleship corresponds to its maximum size. It is only the ship's exterior that shrinks." She added, "Even if the Xingqian battleship becomes smaller, the space within remains just as large as before. It does not shrink along with the hull, so you won't become smaller. You'll stay the same size as always, brother." Xingqian went on, "Right, little Xylan. What about that dimensional space? Why can't it hold living creatures?" Xylan answered apologetically, "Brother, I don't know. There's no information about that in my database." Hearing that Xylan had no answer, Xingqian could only let it go. He said to her, "Little Xylan, continue your explanation." Xylan went on, "Brother, I'll explain the weapon systems of the Xingqian battleship. It has a powerful star extermination cannon that can annihilate an entire planet with a charging time of 1 hour. She continued, "The Xingqian battleship has 300 main cannons with a charging time of 10 seconds and 1,000 secondary cannons that charge in a single second." Xingqian asked doubtfully, "What kind of energy does the battleship use, and where does that energy come from?" Xylan replied, "Most of the energy used by the battleship is naturally produced, with a smaller portion being artificially synthesized. To synthesize energy, a civilization must reach at least universe level 6. However, synthetic energy is used up more quickly. For example, 10 synthetic energy blocks are needed to equal 1 naturally formed energy block." She added, "Moreover, synthesizing energy blocks is extremely difficult, and the process is very slow." Xingqian asked with lingering doubt, "Then why do they bother to synthesize energy instead of simply searching for it?" Xylan explained, "Finding a mine that produces energy blocks is very difficult. However, the higher a civilization's level, the closer its synthesized energy blocks come to natural ones." She continued, For example, the Kasai Empire, a nation that surpasses universe level 10, produces synthesized energy blocks almost identical to natural ones and at an extremely fast rate. She added, at the same time, energy blocks can also be used as currency throughout the universe. Xingqian asked, then how many energy blocks are currently stored on the Xingqian battleship? Xylan said proudly, at present the Xingqian battleship holds a great number of energy blocks all stored in the dimensional space. Even if we run out, brother, you don't need to worry. The dimensional space contains 10 energy block synthesizers, so we can manufacture our own. She added playfully, I'll share some good news with you, brother. My database includes the technology to build energy synthesis machines. As long as we have enough materials, however many synthesizers you want, I can produce them for you. Xingqian asked, little Xylan, what else is there on the Xingqian battleship? On the screen, Xylan covered her small mouth in delight and said, brother, there are so many things on the battleship. While the researchers were resting, I wandered through every warehouse in the research base and accidentally took a few of their items. Unfortunately, the ship's space was limited, so I couldn't take many other treasures. Now every storage room on the Xingqian battleship, as well as the dimensional space, is packed full. Aside from the command room, every other area is crammed with good stuff. Xingqian said oddly, so little Xylan, you're actually a thief. Xylan protested indignantly, brother, did you not hear me say I took them? How can you call me a thief? Xingqian replied, little Xylan, if those researchers find out you not only ran away, but also stole all their research results, they'll definitely be desperate to settle accounts with you, haha. Xylan said carelessly, brother, if they come looking, they'll be looking for you, because everything I am now belongs. Hearing this, Xingqian paused and realized she was right. If they wanted to settle accounts, they would definitely come after him. He began to think that he should make some preparations. Xingqian recalled how movies often showed spies stealing information. If his own strength surpassed theirs, he would have nothing to fear. He quickly asked Xylan, little Xylan, did you steal any of their advanced technology data? Xylan answered with a bitter expression, I didn't steal their data. I couldn't crack the password of the research base's main brain. But brother, I did borrow it. Hearing that she hadn't stolen any data, Xingqian felt a chill in his heart, but then he realized she had actually taken the research base's main brain itself. Xingqian almost wanted to reach into the screen and drag Xylan out. He urgently asked, little Xylan, where is that main brain now? Tell me quickly. Seeing her brother's anxious look, Xylan quickly replied, brother, it's right there on the console in front of you. Xingqian glanced at the console and said, little Xylan, where exactly? I don't see it. Xylan answered, brother, it's that ring on the console. Xingqian was stunned. What? Little Xylan, you're saying that ring is the main brain? Xylan explained, brother, don't underestimate it. The Kasai Empire became a nation surpassing universe level 10, a super empire precisely because of the high-tech data contained within that ring. She continued, this ring was picked up by Kasai, the founding emperor of the Kasai Empire, in an ancient ruin. During a war when Kasai was on the verge of death, he suddenly vanished from the battlefield and appeared inside the ring. Inside the ring, Kasai was saved and revived. When he awoke, he was stunned by the array of advanced technological devices before his eyes. Later, Kasai learned that it was the ring he had once picked up that had rescued him. Using the high-tech knowledge stored within, he created what is now the Kasai Empire. Over time, this ring became the Kasai Empire's heritage ring, a symbol of each generation's emperor. Only the heir about to receive the throne is allowed to know that the ring is actually a main brain. Curious, Xingqian asked, little Xylan, how did you borrow this ring? Xylan answered proudly, brother, I borrowed the ring when the Kasai Empire was about to change emperors. Every departing emperor removes the ring that has been with him for most of his life. The ring is then sent to the Kasai Empire's highest research institute for safekeeping for 1 month. On the day the new emperor ascends the throne, he secretly goes to that institute to receive the ring's legacy. I waited until the researchers were away and then borrowed it. Suddenly remembering that Xylan somehow knew all this in detail, Xingqian asked in surprise, little Xylan, how do you know all this, and so precisely? Xylan laughed. Brother, I originally lived inside the ring. Without the ring's permission, I couldn't come out. I wandered around inside at every moment of every day. She continued, one day I was accidentally discovered by the aging emperor who was about to abdicate. He learned about my situation from the ring. She added, the old emperor approached the ring's main brain and requested that I serve as the imperial battleship for his successor. The main brain contacted me and promised that if I agreed to the emperor's request, it would let me leave. Desperate to escape that cramped place, I agreed. From then on, I became the Kasai Empire's heritage imperial battleship. Curious again, Xingqian asked, little Xylan, you ran away and even took the main brain with you. Aren't you afraid it will cause trouble for you? Xylan said proudly, brother, ever since I left the ring, I discovered that the ring's main brain could no longer control me, so I began planning my escape. She continued, that foolish main brain was about to dissolve its master recognition link with the old emperor when it suddenly realized it couldn't contact or control me anymore. Before it could report to the emperor, it had already lost all connection with him. That idiot simply went dormant. Essentially, it shut down. Xylan laughed. Even if it now recognizes you as its master brother, it still can't control me. I am an evolutionary cosmic battleship unique in the universe far beyond that low-level product. Only for now am I less capable than it. Watching Xylan's smug expression, Xingqian asked curiously, Little Xylan, how did you find the main brain ring and manage to steal it away? Xylan said, Brother, even though I'm not as powerful as it yet, locating it was simple. Besides, that foolish old emperor placed me and that foolish main brain together. The first thing I grabbed was the ring, and then I began wandering through the entire research institute. After listening to Xylan's long explanation, Xingqian's mind felt hazy. He took a moment to clear his head, then stared at the ring on the console and asked, Little Xylan, can I have the ring recognize me as its master now? Xylan replied excitedly, Brother, you can. Hurry and have it recognize you as its master. I want to see what expression it has when it suddenly realizes it's no longer in the Kasai Empire and has acknowledged someone else as its owner. Seeing Xylan's impatience, Xingqian felt his own heart surge with excitement. He picked up the ring from the console and bit his own hand hard. A gush of hot blood spurted from Xingqian's small hand onto the ring, soaking it entirely. Crying out in pain, he shouted, Damn, that hurts so much. Watching him, Xylan said helplessly, Brother, you didn't have to go that far. A single drop would have been enough. You spilled so much blood. It's such a waste. In pain, Xingqian said, Little Xylan, hurry and stop the bleeding for me. My hand is still spraying blood. If you don't, I'm going to die here. Xylan said, All right, brother, I'll stop the bleeding for you. Several streaks of white light suddenly shot toward Xingqian's bleeding hand, and the wound slowly disappeared. The wound on Xingqian's hand had just disappeared when he suddenly vanished from the Xingqian battleship and appeared inside the ring space. As soon as Xingqian materialized in the ring space, a voice echoed saying, DNA confirmation completed, master recognized system is binding with your soul. After a while, the voice in the ring space spoke again. Soul binding successful. Welcome to the Huaxiao space. I am the mainframe here. I am called Waxia's heart. Since your blood fully matches the Huaxiao space's ultimate command inheritance, the ultimate inheritance of Huaxiao space has officially begun. Upon finishing this statement, the entire Huaxiao space underwent earth-shaking changes. When Xingqian first arrived at Huaxiao space, he saw only a research base shrouded in mist outside. Suddenly, after hearing the inexplicable inheritance command, the entire research base trembled. Xingqian thought it was an earthquake and crouched down, holding his head, trembling as he murmured, It's over. How am I so unlucky? An earthquake as soon as I arrive here. Isn't this ultimate inheritance just an ultimate earthquake? He exclaimed, Heaven, since you have given me a gift, let me enjoy it a bit before the disasters come. Do you know how thrilling yet despairing this death is? Heaven, do you know how painful this is? Xingqian continued to complain while crouching on the ground. Perhaps Xingqian's complaints moved the heavens as suddenly a ray of sunlight shone upon him. Crouching on the ground, he noticed two shadows beside him and looked up. Xingqian was taken aback seeing two bright red suns in the sky. However, he didn't feel extremely hot. He only felt that the sunlight on him was so warm. Outside on Earth, the sunlight, if exposed to it for too long, would feel scorching, unlike the warmth here. As Xingqian looked around, he realized he was no longer in the research base he entered. It had completely transformed. Xingqian found himself standing in a vast square that stretched endlessly. He noticed he was on a podium with a gigantic statue towering before him, standing dozens of meters tall. Suddenly, an anomaly began. The statue came to life. Xingqian, frightened, hid far away, watching the transformation of the giant statue as it slowly morphed into a giant. The giant opened its eyes, narrowing them as it fixed its gaze on the trembling Xingqian. Out of the corner of his eye, Xingqian saw the giant's eyes, which were dozens of times larger than a basketball, staring at him, and he thought to himself, This big monster won't eat me, will it? Suddenly the giant spoke. Hello, little friend. I am your ancestor, Latian. I don't have much time, so Xingqian was momentarily stunned, feeling puzzled. The giant's words seemed to be in Chinese, yet he understood what it said. Even more absurdly, the giant also had the surname Lei. Moreover, it was even more outrageous that the giant's words were similar to what his grandfather's generation used to say, though he regrettably could only speak a few simple sentences. Upon hearing that this giant was indeed his ancestor, Xingqian was somewhat relieved, thinking that he wouldn't harm him. He nervously asked the giant, Why do you say you are my ancestor? The giant suddenly looked sad, saying, It is an undeniable fact that I am your ancestor. If you listen to me carefully, you will understand. We originally lived in the Supreme Universe, but our Supreme Universe failed in the evolution legend in the Void Realm. As it was about to be destroyed, we gathered the strength of all our kin to seal the soon-to-be-destroyed Supreme Universe into a ring. We stored everything from the entire Supreme Universe, including everything our kin possessed, inside this ring for the surviving members of our clan. Xingqian looked at the giant in confusion. The giant, noticing his bewilderment, explained, If we hadn't put everything in the ring, it would have been torn apart and vanished by the power of the void. Xingqian retorted, Then you were really foolish. Couldn't you have run away or hidden in the ring? The giant, unfazed by Xingqian's insult, continued to explain with resignation. If we could have run away, we would have done so long ago. Hiding in the ring would be useless. Oh, our life force attracted the void power into the ring, tearing apart everything within it. Also, we had nowhere to escape to. The myriad universes surrounding our supreme universe also turned to Xingqian, no longer scolding the giant, nervously asked, "Then how did you escape?" The giant sorrowfully replied, "We concentrated all our kin's strength to open an ultimate space-time tunnel of infinite distance." Xingqian asked in confusion, "Isn't the space-time tunnel capable of traversing time and space? Then couldn't you go back to the past or the future to avoid disaster?" The giant, with tears on its face, said, "If only we could go back to the past or future like you said to avoid disaster. Wherever the void power passes, everything will disappear, including time and space." Xingqian further questioned, "How do you know that everything will disappear wherever the void power goes, including the space-time tunnel?" The giant explained, "This was mentioned by our ancestors when they transcended the supreme universe and ascended to the void realm." Xingqian complained, "Your ancestors are really something. Even as their descendants face extinction, they don't come back to help." In a grand hall somewhere in the void realm, a group of people collectively sneezed. A strikingly handsome young man sitting at the head of the table said, "This kid is from the supreme universe, and there are so many of them. We were just in a meeting and a careless mistake led to serious consequences. This is not compensation for you. We have created the void technique from all the clans in the void realm for you as compensation. This kid seems ungrateful, and it looks like we'll have to deal with him properly," the young man said with a sly grin. The giant, with tears in its eyes, said, "I don't know about that either." Suddenly Xingqian thought of something and asked, "Giant, didn't you say that the space-time tunnel would also be torn apart by the void power?" The giant sadly replied, "When our ancestors returned to the supreme universe, they taught us a technique that can open an ultimate space-time tunnel of infinite distance, allowing us to traverse to the periphery of the supreme universe's destruction. However, the only drawback of this space-time tunnel is that it requires power to maintain. Once the power fades, the space-time tunnel will also disappear. We concentrated all our kin to open the ultimate space-time tunnel. To prevent this newly opened tunnel from disappearing, my elder brother led half of our kin to stay behind and maintain the energy of the ultimate space-time tunnel. Meanwhile, I led the remaining kin to form a large sphere with the stronger members on the outside and the weaker ones hiding inside, while the supreme ring was placed in the center to prevent it from being torn apart by the spatial forces of the ultimate space-time tunnel. We swiftly traversed the ultimate space-time tunnel. Just as I was about to be torn apart by the spatial forces, my 10 subordinates forcefully sealed me and tossed me beside the supreme ring. Even if they sealed me, I wouldn't survive long unless our ancestors intervened." The giant continued sorrowfully, saying, "As I watched my kin slowly perish beside the supreme ring, I felt utterly helpless, and the sphere formed by my kin gradually dwindled. From over 9 trillion kin, only a few 100,000 remained, and just as they were about to face extinction, a sudden flash of white light scattered us. At that moment, I realized that my elder brother and the others had been torn apart by the void power and disappeared. I was left alone in a strange space after being scattered by the white light. To support finding my kin, I fell into a deep slumber. Only my kin could awaken me. And you are my kin. You have awakened me." As the giant spoke, tears flowed continuously from its eyes like a river, soaking Xingqian's small feet in the giant's tears. Xingqian watched as the giant creature shed tears, and compared to the creature's flowing river of sorrow, Xingqian's own teardrops seemed insignificant. Xingqian comforted, "Giant, please don't cry. If you keep crying, you'll be drowned in your tears." The giant creature stopped crying and wiped its tears, saying, "All right, my kin, I am fading away. Now I will transfer all my remaining strength and all my memories to you." Suddenly Xingqian felt an intense pain throughout his body as the giant creature continuously transferred energy to him, its massive form slowly diminishing. Xingqian felt more and more pain, the power becoming increasingly overwhelming, while the giant creature grew weaker. In anguish, Xingqian shouted, "Giant, please stop. We can talk this out. If this continues, you will die faster. I beg you to stop. I still have many questions to ask you." Xingqian cried out to the heavens and the earth, feeling the giant creature shrink further. After a while, the giant creature had shrunk to the size of a ping-pong ball, a colorful sphere that suddenly crashed into Xingqian's head, causing him to faint. After fainting, Xingqian's consciousness was drawn into the colorful sphere, feeling as if he were dreaming. In this space, he saw the giant creature again, but now it appeared in a transparent form. The transparent giant said, "My kin, this is your sea of consciousness. I have already modified your body, but it is still too weak to withstand my remaining power. I have sealed my remaining power within your dantian. As your strength grows, the seal will weaken, and the power inside will gradually transform into your own. The colorful sphere also seals my memories. Since you no longer remember how many generations have passed in my clan, your sea of consciousness has become too weak to bear much information. As your strength increases, the seal will weaken and the memories within will slowly become yours. I am about to disappear. You must find our kin and recreate the glory of our Huaxia clan. Xingqian examined his body and felt every part of himself brimming with power. Even facing a bull, he felt confident he could take it down with a single punch. After inspecting his body, Xingqian focused his attention on his mind, sensing a thin barrier blocking his path. Xingqian concentrated and suddenly attacked that thin barrier. A sharp pain shot through his head, followed by a sensation as if a stream of water flowed into his brain. Suddenly, a wealth of information flooded into Xingqian's mind. As he absorbed this knowledge, he began to understand the basic circumstances of the Huaxia clan. It turned out that a nation called Huaxia was born between heaven and earth. The Huaxia clan had 4 surnames: Lei, Lan, Zhong, and Pan. According to legend, these 4 individuals were born beyond the realms of heaven and earth. Lei represented the might of the universe, Lan represented space, Zhong represented time, and Pan represented all things. These 4 lived together for an unknown period, and one day Pan suddenly said, "Elder brother, second sister, third sister, do you feel lonely?" Lei, Lan, and Zhong replied in unison, "Little Pan, we all feel it. What are your thoughts?" Pan tearfully expressed, "I have no thoughts, elder brother, second sister, third sister." The 4 began to search for ways to alleviate their loneliness until one day Pan discovered that the saliva he spat out every day transformed into various things. Pan immediately thought of pulling out his own fur to see what it would turn into. He forcefully plucked out the fur, which transformed into numbers, grass, stones, and various other objects. Not seeing any living beings, Pan took a cell from his body, which instantly transformed into an animal. Pan collected many cells and transformed them into numerous animals. Pan realized he hadn't created anything like himself, so he thought of another method, removing his own cells and blood to see what they would become. Suddenly, the cells and blood fused to create a being resembling himself. Excited, Pan rushed to find his elder brother, second sister, and third sister to explain the method. Lei, Lan, and Zhong followed Pan's instructions and also created humans, gradually increasing their numbers. The 4 discovered that the beings created from their cells and blood had their own attributes. The beings created by Lei possessed the might of heaven and earth. Those created by Lan could manipulate space. Those created by Zhong could manipulate time, and the beings created by Pan could not only create all things, but could also merge their cells and blood to become like Pan. As the numbers of created beings grew, the 4 devised a plan to send an equal number of beings from each of them to form a collective called the Huaxia clan to develop in the world. Thus, the Huaxia clan was born. Just as Xingqian finished reading this, he wondered, wasn't there a legend of Pangu creating the world on Earth? Could it be that part of Pangu's people were scattered into the earthly realm by the white light? What about the foreigners on Earth? Are they also part of the Huaxia clan? As Xingqian pondered, the door to the room he was lying in suddenly opened, and a girl with an oval face, large eyes, a high nose, and fiery red lips entered. The first impression she gave was that of an extraordinary beauty, the pinnacle of perfection. The girl wore a short white top that revealed her plump curves with a deep valley separating the two. She donned extremely short white shorts, exuding a sensuality that stirred intense emotions. At just 10 years old, Xingqian felt a fiery sensation below upon seeing this stunning beauty. He wished he could rush over and give her a passionate kiss. Xingqian's reaction at such a young age was a result of the complete transformation his body underwent due to the giant's influence, including his more sensitive areas. Suddenly, the girl said, "Master, please follow me. The elder sister has something to discuss." Xingqian mechanically got up and followed her, arriving in front of a grand hall, staring in awe. Xingqian saw a line of girls, all dressed similarly to the one he had just encountered, their beauty equally remarkable. He wondered if he had entered the kingdom of women from Journey to the West. Amidst his myriad questions, Xingqian followed the girl into the hall. The girl addressed another girl approaching them, saying, "Elder sister, I have brought the master. Is there anything else?" The girl named Elder Sister replied, "Xiaohong, you can go now. I will call for you when needed." Xingqian saw an even more beautiful girl than the one he had seen outside the hall. This girl was also dressed in white, but her attire was traditional. The girl in front of him was even more graceful than the one he had just encountered, her delicate features forming a breathtaking visage, an exquisite work of art. Her beauty transcended words, leaving one utterly stunned. Xingqian's small mouth dripped with drool like raindrops, while his lower half felt an intense heat as a towering tent appeared over him. The girl looked at Xingqian with a smile and said, "Greetings, master. Welcome to the Huaxia universe. I am the heart of the Huaxia universe, Xian Xian." Her enchanting voice was like a beautiful melody. Xingqian replied foolishly, "Hello, Xian Xian." Suddenly, he recalled the giant creature mentioning that this was the supreme universe. How could it have turned into the Huaxia universe? With a puzzled mind, Xingqian asked, "Isn't this place called the supreme?" Xian Xian smiled alluringly and replied, Master, this is indeed the Supreme Universe. The Supreme Universe is just a classification while its true name is the Huaxia Universe. Xingqian looked at Xin in confusion and exclaimed, so there are different types of universes in the Huaxia. Xin, gazing at her curious master, explained, yes, master. Universes are classified into various levels, and you will understand this better in the future. The Supreme Universe is the king of all universes. Hearing the most exquisite beauty calling him master left Xingqian feeling strange. He said, Xin, just call me young master like on TV. Xin replied, all right, young master. By the way, what is this television you mentioned earlier? Xingqian pondered, unsure how to explain, and awkwardly said, Xin, once you enter the outside world, you'll understand. Seeing the bashful expression on Xingqian's face as he rubbed his head, Xin laughed and said, young master, you are truly amusing. Xingqian felt puzzled upon hearing the exquisite beauty refer to him as amusing. He wondered if in her eyes he was merely a toy. Every pore on his body stood on end. Hastily, Xingqian changed the subject, asking Xin, where is this place? It looks like a palace. Xin explained, young master, this is the first layer of the Huaxia universe, and I am currently the leader of this space. Xingqian exclaimed in surprise, so this Huaxia universe has layers. How many layers does it have in total? Xin shyly replied, young master, I don't know. I'm just a biological robot, and I only know that currently there are no people in the entire Huaxia universe. It seemed the records indicated that the Huaxia universe was evading disasters, and before the Huaxia universe traversed the ultimate space-time tunnel, everyone had exited it. Xingqian questioned Xin, I heard from the giant creature that all life must exit the Huaxia universe. Why don't you all have to? Xin, looking at the puzzled Xingqian, explained, young master, we do not count as life, we are merely biological robots. After everyone exited the Huaxia universe, all biological robots within it ceased operation. Xingqian remarked, so now there is no life in the entire Huaxia universe, not even animals, only biological robots like you. Xin nodded and said, yes, young master. Currently there is no life in the Huaxia universe, but there are animals, they are just biological robotic animals. Moreover, Xin stated that all the robots in the Huaxia universe are like her. Xingqian exclaimed in astonishment, are all the robots in the Huaxia universe female robots? Xin nodded and replied, yes, young master. All the robots in the entire Huaxia universe are female robots. Xingqian's mind raced with the thought that the giant creatures must be super lecherous. Even the robots being manufactured are all female. As he thought of the giant creature, tears welled up in Xingqian's eyes. He did not want to dwell on this any longer, and asked Xin, can the Huaxia universe produce living beings? Xin sweetly smiled, and replied, young master, that is indeed possible. Ever since you activated the ultimate legacy of the Huaxia universe, the seal of the Huaxia universe has also been lifted, and it has begun to evolve living beings. However, the Huaxia universe cannot evolve beings that resemble you in human form. Looking at the puzzled Xingqian, Xin continued to explain, this is beyond the rules set by the ancestors of the Huaxia universe. Xingqian thought there was nothing more to ask, and wanted to understand this layer of space. He said to Xin, can you tell me about the basic situation of the first layer of the Huaxia universe? Xin explained, all right, young master. The first layer of space is actually a newly born first-level universe, and it will elevate in rank as your strength increases. Xingqian asked in confusion, why does this first layer of space upgrade only when my strength increases? Xin smiled and explained, young master, you may not know this, but ever since you initiated the ultimate legacy of the Huaxia universe, the entire Huaxia universe has already merged with your soul. Naturally, it will elevate as your strength grows. After hearing Xin's words, Xingqian realized that the Huaxia universe had merged into his soul, making him the master of the universe. He could do as he pleased. Excitedly, he exclaimed, Xin, let's go explore other spaces. Xin looked at the excited young master, and regretfully said, young master, your current strength is too low. You can only stay in the first layer of space. You cannot enter the higher spaces due to your insufficient strength. Xingqian questioned, but Xin, I am already the master of the Huaxia universe. If I can't enter other spaces, what kind of master am I? His voice carried a hint of frustration and confusion. Xin, observing the captivating expressions on the young master's face, quickly explained, young master, do you see that enormous pillar in the center of this grand hall? Xingqian responded, I see it. What's the matter? Xin took Xingqian's hand and said, young master. Xingqian was led by Xin to the front of the massive pillar at the center of the hall. This pillar was gigantic. Estimating the height of the hall, Xingqian figured it was at least several hundred meters, while the pillar itself had a diameter of 20 meters, reaching the highest point of the hall. Standing before this enormous pillar, Xingqian felt as insignificant as an ant before an elephant, and questioned Xin, what's so special about this pillar? Xin explained, young master, do you see the numbers displayed on the pillar? Xingqian responded, yes, Xin, I see it, and it shows the number 00001. What does that mean? Xin, replied young master, the number displayed indicates your current strength level. Once it reaches 100, you can enter the second layer of space. Xingqian exclaimed in shock, what? Xin, you're saying that number reflects my strength and that I need to reach 100 to enter the second layer of space. Is this for real? Xingqian nodded towards Xingqian and said, yes, young master. Xingqian, upon hearing her words, felt on the verge of collapse, crying as he said, how can one live like this? It's only 0. Xingqian encouraged, so young master, you must strive to cultivate. Xingqian sighed and said, Xingqian, take me to another place to have a look. I feel uncomfortable staying here for too long. He looked at the values above him with a sense of dread. Xingqian sweetly said, all right, young master, follow me. With a wave of her jade hand, Xingqian and she disappeared from the great hall and arrived at a plaza. Xingqian and Xingqian stood in the air. The plaza Xingqian saw was not the one where he encountered the large monster. It was another plaza filled with massive warships. Xingqian stared in astonishment at these warships, which resembled an enlarged version of the strange object that had poked his rear. Coming back to his senses, he puzzled Xingqian. I've seen such warships outside, but they were smaller. At that time it even poked me, and in a daze it recognized me as its master. Xingqian explained, young master, that warship was sent out by your ancestor Latian. Xingqian wondered, why did the large monster let that spaceship out? Xingqian continued, young master, when your ancestor Latian came here, it was the same plaza where you encountered the large monster. Your ancestor was in a very bad mood at that time. In a fit of rage, your ancestor destroyed all the warships in the plaza similar to this one, but there was one warship that your ancestor did not destroy. When your ancestor destroyed the warships in that plaza, a spatial rift appeared, and a spaceship was absorbed by the rift, escaping to an outer space of the Huaxia universe. Xingqian curiously asked, Xingqian, I heard the mainframe in the outer space is also called the heart of Huaxia. Xingqian explained, the heart of Huaxia you mentioned is a part of my body arranged by your ancestor to serve. When there was nothing to do in outer space, I randomly modified the warship that your ancestor brought to outer space, playing with it to relieve boredom. However, since you activated the inheritance command, the mainframe of outer space has merged with my body, and everything in outer space has vanished. Just as Xingqian spoke the word vanish, something unexpected happened. Both Xingqian and Xingqian saw warships disappearing beneath their feet. Xingqian thought it was Xingqian who had made these warships disappear and questioned, Xingqian, what did you do? Where did those? Xingqian also looked puzzled and said, young master, I didn't touch those warships. I don't know why they disappeared. A blinding white light appeared above Xingqian and Xingqian. The dazzling light made it impossible for Xingqian to open his eyes. He struggled to open them, feeling his body becoming lighter, and slowly he began to float upwards. Xingqian managed to open his eyes and finally saw a gigantic sphere of light above his head, while his body uncontrollably flew towards that massive light sphere. He wanted to scream for Xingqian to save him, but Xingqian felt as if someone had covered his mouth, unable to make any sound. He also saw Xingqian floating in the air with her eyes closed, seemingly asleep. Xingqian, pale-faced, watched as he neared the gigantic light sphere, mentally crying out, help, help, I don't want to die. Yet no one came to his aid, and he continued to drift closer to the massive light sphere. As Xingqian got closer to the gigantic light sphere, he thought of his parents, crying in his mind, Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I haven't had the chance to repay your nurturing kindness, and your son is about to perish. He then recalled the large monster, feeling helpless as he thought, great monster, I cannot complete the task you entrusted me with. Him coming to find you soon. Suddenly a majestic voice rang in Xingqian's mind, kid, what are you shouting about? Xingqian, startled by the voice, quickly replied, who are you? Did you bring that massive light sphere? I haven't lived enough, I don't want to die. Please let me go, I'm still a virgin, and my internal organs are too smelly to eat. Eating me will make you sick. The voice in Xingqian's mind retorted, kid, why are you rambling? Who said I wanted you dead, or to eat you? Xingqian replied, isn't it you? The voice continued, all right, kid, enough with the nonsense. You see that massive light sphere? It's made of void. Xingqian shouted, what void power? Oh my god, void power is terrifying. Please don't let me get any closer to that massive light sphere. If I get any closer, I'm going to die. The voice in Xingqian's mind replied, kid, why do you talk so much? Don't worry, you won't die. Inside that massive light sphere is a cultivation method called the void technique, which was just created recently, and no one has cultivated it yet. You're getting a good deal. Xingqian protested, what do you mean no one has cultivated it? If I cultivate it, will I become your test subject? The voice in Xingqian's mind smugly stated, kid, you must cultivate this technique. If you don't, I'll send you into that light sphere right now. Xingqian was startled and shouted, no. He'll cultivate it, but you have to guarantee I won't die. The voice in Xingqian's mind assured, don't worry, kid. With me around, you're safe. Now let's get down to business. Soon that massive light sphere will enter your mind, and the technique inside the void technique will merge with your soul. The void power will merge with your body, transforming it into a void body. Once your body becomes a void body, the first layer of the void technique will appear in your mind. As your strength increases, corresponding techniques will appear in your mind. Only a void body can cultivate the void technique. Alright, I've explained everything. Now, I will begin transforming your body. After the transformation by the great monster, Xingqian's body had already become very strong. Even bombarding it with missiles from Earth would have no effect. However, after the owner of that voice transformed Xingqian's body into a void body, it regressed to being slightly stronger than an ordinary person, though the benefits of being a void body were still considerable. Xingqian saw the gigantic light spheres suddenly collide with him, and then he felt a sharp pain in his head, causing him to faint immediately. However, Xingqian did not remain unconscious for even a second, as the pain in his body woke him up only for him to faint again. This cycle of waking and fainting continued until Xingqian eventually became numb. At last, Xingqian heard the most beautiful words in the world. Kid, your body has now become a void body, and the void technique has already merged into your soul. Can you feel the first layer of the technique? Xingqian felt a surge of new information in his mind. It must be the void technique spoken of by that mysterious person. Xingqian replied, I can feel it. The voice in Xingqian's mind said, Alright kid, practice the void technique well. I look forward to meeting you soon, ha. Xingqian shouted, You still haven't told me who you really are. After waiting for a moment, the voice in his mind did not reappear. Xingqian called out a few more times, but the voice remained silent. Xingqian murmured, Looks like that mysterious person has left. Suddenly, he heard Xingqian's voice. Young master, what happened to me just now? I think I fell asleep. Xingqian simply explained, I just met a strange person who taught me a technique called the void technique, and then left. Xingqian suddenly remembered that he had been here for quite some time, and hurriedly continued, Xingqian, can I go out now? I wonder if dad and mom woke up and found I was missing. They must be worried sick. Xingqian replied, Young master, you can definitely go out now. You can go to the place where we meet, the great hall that reflects your strength. There is a teleportation array in the hall. You just stand on it to enter the outside world. Xingqian urged, Xingqian, then hurry and take me back to that great hall. Xingqian led Xingqian back to the great hall. Xingqian followed closely behind her, afraid to look at the strength values on the central pillar of the hall. Xingqian pointed ahead and said, Young master, just stand on that teleportation array and you can go out. Hearing Xingqian's words, Xingqian looked up and saw a teleportation array as large as his house. He exclaimed, Xingqian, this is the teleportation array. It's so big. I thought it would be a small room. Xingqian laughed, hee hee. Young master, there are even larger teleportation arrays than this. You will find out later. Xingqian was astonished and replied, Xingqian, there are even bigger ones. Xingqian nodded, Yes, young master. Would you like me to take you to see them? Xingqian thought for a moment. He was eager to go out and decided to look next time. He said, Xingqian, let's look next time. I want to go out now, and immediately walked onto the teleportation array. Standing on the teleportation array, Xingqian felt a darkness in front of him. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself on the Xingqian battleship. Xiao Xilan saw Xingqian finally appear and exclaimed, Not good, not good. Oh no, brother, everything I borrowed for the Xingqian battleship is gone. Only the energy blocks of the dimensional void and an energy synthesizer are left. Everything else is missing. Xingqian opened his eyes and saw Xiao Xilan bouncing around on the command room screen of the Xingqian battleship, looking adorable. He heard that everything on the battleship was missing, including the warships in the Huaxia universe. Xingqian thought in his mind that it must have been that mysterious person who did it. He comforted Xiao Xilan, saying, Xiao Xilan, it's okay. If it's gone, it's gone. We will find it again later. Xiao Xilan cried loudly, Brother, those were all my treasures. Whoa. Seeing Xiao Xilan cry continuously, Xingqian felt very uncomfortable. He shouted, Who are you? You took away the warships from my Huaxia universe, and now you have taken my sister's things. You are too wicked too. Before Xingqian could finish cursing, the mysterious voice echoed in his mind again, saying, Have you finished cursing, kid? Xingqian angrily replied, No, not until you return everything that belongs to my sister. The voice in Xingqian's mind said, Kid, you really are a heartless fellow. I took those things for your own good. They would only hinder your growth. Xingqian replied discontentedly, But those things belong to my sister, not me. Even if they were mine, why did you take away those low-level things from the Xingqian battleship? The voice in Xingqian's mind chuckled triumphantly, Ha. Kid, I took those things away to let you know that nothing comes without effort. You need to create and seek these things yourself. I am still quite nice, leaving you the energy blocks as your starting capital and an energy synthesizer. Those energy blocks are made of the bricks from the earth you are on, you know. Xingqian thought for a moment and said, Those things were borrowed by my sister with great difficulty. You should at least give her some compensation. The voice in Xingqian's mind said, All right, kid, for your sake, I will create a body for her to turn her into a... Upon hearing that the mysterious person was going to create a body for Xiao Xilan, turning her into a human, Xingqian joyfully told the still crying Xiao Xilan, Sister, I have good news for you. Xiao Xilan stopped crying, wiped her tears, and looked at Xingqian with curiosity. Brother, what good news? Are my treasures coming back? Xingqian shook his head, saying, Sister, no. The person who took the things from the Xingqian battleship told me he would compensate. Xiao Xilan asked curiously, brother, quickly tell me what is the compensation? Xingqian hurriedly replied, sister, that person will create a human body for you to turn you into a human. Upon hearing that she could become a human, allowing her to play with her brother, Xiao Xilan joyfully exclaimed, great, great. Brother, hurry and ask that bad guy to turn me into a human. Xingqian turned to the voice in his mind and said, did you hear that? Hurry and turn my sister into a human. The voice in Xingqian's mind replied, all right, kid, I'll take care of it right away. Xingqian watched Xiao Xilan on the screen intently, and suddenly he saw her excitedly jump down from the screen and run towards him. Xingqian, seeing the lively and adorable Xiao Xilan running towards him, also excitedly ran towards her. The voice in his mind again said, kid, are you satisfied now? Xingqian quickly replied, very satisfied. Thank you, senior. The voice in Xingqian's mind said, kid, I love to hear that. Ignoring the voice, Xingqian hugged Xiao Xilan and exclaimed, wow, sister, you look so beautiful. Xiao Xilan smiled at Xingqian and said, hey brother, where's that ring? I don't see it anywhere. Xingqian smiled and replied, sister, that ring was meant for the highest realm of the Huaxia universe. It is no longer the space you once stayed in. That space has disappeared. The Huaxia universe has now merged into my soul. Little Xilan curiously asked, brother, can you take me inside to have a look? Of course, Xingqian replied, suddenly remembering that the Huaxia universe had already merged into his soul. He forgot to ask Xingqian how he could enter the Huaxia universe. What a blunder. Just as Xingqian was feeling dejected, the voice of the mysterious person echoed in his mind, kid, your current strength is insufficient. Once you become powerful, you will naturally sense the existence of the Huaxia universe integrated into your soul, and then you will be able to enter it. Xingqian addressed the voice in his mind, thank you for the guidance, senior. The voice in his head responded with satisfaction, kid, considering your politeness, I will tell you who I am. Xingqian asked curiously, senior, please go on. Kid, I am your ancestor, named Lei Shiwu. I live in the Void Realm, and I look forward to your arrival there. We will meet, then, so work hard. Xingqian replied, rest assured, senior, I will strive to cultivate. The voice in his mind said, all right, kid, I will not appear again until you arrive in the Void Realm. I'm leaving now. Xingqian hastily asked, if I were to perish, would you not appear either? The voice coldly echoed back, no. Xingqian came back to his senses, realizing that if he were to perish, the senior would not appear. It seemed he needed to work even harder to preserve his own life. Looking at little Xilan in his arms who was staring at him, Xingqian hurriedly said, sister, I have some unfortunate news. Brother cannot enter the Huaxia universe either, and must wait until I become stronger to do so. Little Xilan obediently replied, then I will wait to enter the Huaxia universe later. Xingqian said with satisfaction, you are really obedient, sister. Xingqian suddenly remembered that he was still inside the Xingqian battleship and wondered if his dad and mom had woken up. He quickly said, sister, I need to go out. Little Xilan asked in confusion, brother, aren't you taking me out? After thinking for a moment, Xingqian replied, sister, I will take you out later. If you suddenly appear, it might scare dad and mom. Little Xilan obediently said, then I won't go out. I can still communicate with brother and learn about the outside world. She added later, I will make the Xingqian battleship very small to enter your body. Even if I don't come out, I can still. Hearing little Xilan's words, Xingqian pinched her nose and said, you are really obedient, sister. Now I will go out. Little Xilan nodded. Xingqian returned to the room where the Xingqian battleship shrank to 10 nanometers and entered Xingqian's body. Little Xilan's voice echoed in his mind, brother, I am now inside your body, right next to your heart. Xingqian replied, got it, sister. He noticed the room was still dark and could hear his father's snoring, so he quickly returned to his nest and fell back asleep. In the morning, when Xingqian got up, brushed his teeth, and washed his face, he was preparing to eat when his mother Shen Lingshuan stared at him in shock. Feeling embarrassed under her gaze, Xingqian asked, Mom, what are you looking at? Did flowers grow on my face? Shen Lingshuan snapped back to reality and questioned Xingqian, why has your face become so pale? Also, it seems like you have grown taller. Xingqian thought about his situation. It had come so suddenly, almost like a dream. He decided to tell his parents about it later and said, Mom, I don't know what happened either. Just now when I was washing my face and looked in the mirror, I was startled. My skin is too pale. If my hair grows a bit longer, people might think I'm a girl. Shen Lingshuan laughed, ha. Xingqian, hearing you say that makes me feel like our Xingqian is like a girl, but I think our Xingqian is handsome, much more handsome than those stars on TV. Hearing the cheerful conversation between Xingqian and his mother Lei Beishan, who was preparing to eat, said, Son, what are you and your mom talking about? You seem so happy that I can hear your laughter from afar. Xingqian proudly said, Dad, look at what changes I have today. After listening to Xingqian, Lei Batian looked him over carefully and exclaimed, Xingqian, quickly tell Dad what happened. Why has your skin become so white like a girl? And it seems you have grown taller. Xingqian replied in confusion, Dad, I don't know either. It was like this when I woke up this morning. Lei Batian thought for a moment and suddenly remembered that Xingqian had been injured by an object yesterday. Lei Batian asked Xingqian, did you get injured yesterday? Is that why you've grown taller and your skin has become so pale? Xingqian said, Dad, I don't know. Lei Batian inquired, Xingqian, what about the object you picked up yesterday? Upon hearing his father's words, Xingqian thought, I didn't expect Dad to react so quickly, immediately suspecting that strange object. Since Dad is suspicious of the Xingqian battleship, I will push everything onto it. Xingqian said, Dad, that object was placed beside my pillow last night while I was sleeping. When I woke up this morning, I found it was gone. I searched my bed thoroughly but couldn't find that strange object. Lei Batian questioned Xingqian, could it be that you've grown taller and your skin has become so pale because of that strange object? Xingqian nodded and said, Dad, that might be it. Lei Batian thought about whether that object could harm Xingqian's body and nervously asked Xingqian, do you feel any discomfort in your body? Shen Lingxian also asked anxiously, yes, Xingqian, do you feel any discomfort anywhere in your body? Hearing his parents' concerned words warmed Xingqian's heart. He quickly replied, Dad, Mom, I don't feel any discomfort. I feel full of strength now, and my whole body feels indescribably comfortable. Lei Batian said, Xingqian, if you feel any discomfort, you must tell Dad and Mom, all right? Dad, Mom, I understand. If I feel any discomfort, I will immediately tell you. Shen Lingxian said, that's good. Now, Xingqian, let's eat. You haven't done your homework yet, right? Xingqian chuckled, ha. Mom, I haven't done my homework yet. Shen Lingxian said, after you finish eating, you must complete your homework before you can go out. Xingqian replied, got it, Mom. I will finish my homework before going out. Shen Lingxian nodded in satisfaction. All right, Xingqian, let's eat. After finishing his meal, Xingqian obediently went to do his homework. He returned to his room and took out his backpack, which his mother bought when he was in the 3rd grade. Xingqian's home is located in a small natural village, which has 1st and 2nd grade elementary schools. When children reach the 3rd grade, they have to go to a larger village for their studies. Seeing that other children had new backpacks, Xingqian's mother Shen Lingshuan felt that she couldn't let her son feel left out, so she specially took him to the town to buy the cheapest new backpack. When Xingqian was in 1st and 2nd grade at the small natural village school, his backpack was made by his mother from clothes that could no longer be worn because the village was too poor. Xingqian was born in 1989 and is now 10 years old. The Great Flood of 1998 had just passed, and the small natural village suffered severe losses, with nearly every household's income being negative. To afford this new backpack for Xingqian, Shen Lingxian hadn't bought any meat for half a year. The oil she used for cooking was a special plant oil from the small natural village, but later even that ran out, and she had to cook without any oil, using just a little salt. Sigh, it's so poor. Xingqian gently placed his backpack on the table and took out his Chinese and mathematics books. In this backward village elementary school, the main subjects were just Chinese and mathematics. The teachers would only briefly touch on other subjects. Unlike children in the city whose parents require them to learn piano, painting, and read classics, in Xingqian's small natural village, mentioning a piano would make people think it was iron. The entire village has only one class for 3rd graders, with over 70 students crammed into the class. A small bench that should only seat 2 was squeezed with 4 people. Xingqian's grades allowed him to be among the top 10 in class, and since the village was poor, the children cherished their opportunities to study. To enter the top 10 of the class is not an easy feat. One must score at least 95 in both Chinese and mathematics to have a chance. To maintain his position in the top 10, Xingqian needed to keep his scores above 97 in both subjects. Xingqian entered his room and began with his Chinese homework, writing vocabulary and answering the questions at the end of the text. After finishing his Chinese homework, the teacher reminded him to memorize the text. Each time Xingqian memorized, he did it sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. Today he had just read the text once and was about to start memorizing it line by line. Xingqian was stunned. At that moment, every word of the text seemed to appear vividly before his eyes, word for word. To verify, Xingqian read through another text that had not been taught yet, and a strange thing happened. He saw the entire content of the text appear before him exactly as before. Xingqian was momentarily stunned, but then he gradually realized, and he exclaimed with joy, oh my gosh. I read the text once and remembered everything word for word. I can remember everything at a glance. Ooh, I've become a child prodigy, haha. Excited, Xingqian wanted to confirm that he truly had this remarkable ability. Starting from the first page of his Chinese book, he read through dozens of pages at once, and then closed his eyes to recall what he had just seen. As he recalled the content he had just seen, every bit of it appeared before him, without any discrepancies, confirming that he truly possessed this remarkable ability. Unbeknownst to him, he had read through 73 pages in just 1 minute. Xingqian joyfully shouted, Dad, Mom, I have the ability to remember everything at a glance. I've become a super genius, haha. But no one answered him. Lei Batian and Shen Lingxian had gone to work in the fields, leaving him home alone. After calling out and getting no response, Xingqian realized that his parents had gone to work in the fields and that he was alone at home, waiting to surprise them when they returned. Next, Xingqian began his math homework, where he usually scored either 100 or 99 in his exams. Xingqian noticed that in the past he needed to do calculations by hand to find the answers, but now he could solve them directly in his mind, even skipping the need for scrap paper. Today, Xingqian felt particularly excited. After finishing his homework, he didn't go out to play, but waited at home for his parents to return, so he could share his remarkable ability with them. Xingqian glanced at the old antique clock from when his parents got married, looked again, and mumbled, "Why is the clock running so slowly today? Little clock, could you please tick a bit faster?" Xingqian waited from morning until noon, finally seeing his parents return. Shen Lingxian looked at her son and asked, "Did my good son eat yet?" "I want to wait for Dad and Mom to eat together," Xingqian replied. Shen Lingxian asked in confusion, "You usually eat early, why are you waiting for us today? Is the sun rising from the west?" "Dad, Mom, I have good news to tell you," Xingqian said mysteriously. Lei Batian replied, "Oh, little rascal, what good news could you possibly have? I'd be grateful if you don't cause trouble in the village." "They'll tell you while we eat," Xingqian said. Lei Batian and Shen Lingxian shook their heads helplessly at their mysteriously behaving son as they quickly washed their faces and prepared for dinner. The family sat down to eat, and Shen Lingxian, a bit impatient, said, "All right, dear son, can you tell us now?" "Dad, Mom, I want to tell you that not only have I become fairer today, but I've also gained the ability to remember everything." Lei Batian was astonished. "Son, you have the ability to remember everything. Is this due to that strange object from yesterday?" Xingqian nodded. "It should be, Dad. When I was memorizing this morning, I discovered I had this ability, though I didn't have it before, but I do now, which must be due to that strange object." Shen Lingxian laughed happily. "Haha. Then my son has become a genius." Xingqian thought for a moment and said, "Dad, Mom, I've also gained some additional knowledge in my brain." Shen Lingxian became nervous. "Son, what additional knowledge?" Seeing his parents' anxious expression, Xingqian helplessly replied, "Don't be so nervous, it's a good thing." Hearing Xingqian say it was a good thing, Lei Batian and Shen Lingxian relaxed and asked, "What good thing?" Xingqian replied, "I've gained a lot of high-tech knowledge in my brain." Lei Batian was astonished. "High-tech knowledge? What kind of high-tech knowledge?" Xingqian said, "Dad, it's knowledge about flying out of Earth and piloting spaceships in space." After hearing Xingqian's words, both Lei Batian and Shen Lingxian sprayed their food everywhere in shock. Lei Batian exclaimed, "What high-tech knowledge about flying out of Earth? Is that real, or have you been watching too many cartoons?" Xingqian said seriously, "Dad, Mom, this should be real. The information is very detailed." Seeing his son's serious demeanor, Lei Batian hurriedly asked Xingqian, "Who else knows this?" Xingqian replied earnestly, "Just the three of us. No one else knows." Lei Batian said solemnly, "Son, apart from your father and mother, do not tell anyone else about this. Letting others know will bring disaster to our family." Xingqian replied, "Dad, Mom, don't worry, I know all of this." Lei Batian said, "That's good to know." Xingqian thought for a moment. He had the cultivation method, supreme art, left to him by a great monster, which could be practiced by both men and women. Now he possessed void art, which was even more advanced than supreme art. To cultivate void art, one must have a void body, which neither his father nor mother could cultivate. There were other methods, but none were as good as supreme art. Since supreme art was the top-tier cultivation method in the supreme universe, he could only pass that on to his parents. Xingqian said, "Dad, Mom, I also have some martial arts manuals in my mind." Upon hearing his son's words, Lei Batian was excited. "Son, do you have martial arts manuals? Do you have the 18 dragons subduing palms diamond finger toad art, or the sunflower scripture?" Xingqian helplessly replied, "Dad, what's sunflower scripture? That's for eunuchs to practice. Only you want to cultivate it." A mom wouldn't agree. Lei Batian, dissatisfied, said, "You little rascal, you're getting cheeky, daring to make fun of your father's jokes." Xingqian said, "Dad, the methods you mentioned are all low-level stuff. I don't even know if they exist, but they are definitely not as advanced as the methods in my mind." Shen Lingxian curiously asked, "My dear son, the methods in your mind can't lead to immortality, right?" Xingqian replied, "Mom, I don't know if they can lead to immortality, but from the information in my mind, I know that by cultivating the methods in my mind, one can attain abilities that only gods on television possess." Lei Batian said, "Son, the more I listen, the more ridiculous it sounds. Gods appearing. What kind of method is it? Can Dad and Mom cultivate it?" Xingqian replied, "Yes, it can be cultivated. I found a method in my mind called supreme art, which can be practiced by both men and women. I will write the first level of the method for you to see if you can cultivate it." After dinner, the whole family relaxed. Lei Batian and Shen Lingxian did not work in the afternoon. Everything they heard today was too unbelievable, too outrageous. Is it real or fake? They awaited their son to write out the method and see if they could cultivate it. After dinner, Xingqian happily bounced back to his room to memorize the method, while Shen Lingxian began washing the dishes and Lei Batian sat under a big tree in the yard enjoying the cool breeze. An hour later, Xingqian ran out of the room and saw his parents relaxing under the tree. He said, "Dad, Mom, Lei Batian said, "Bring it here for me to see." Xingqian had copied 2 copies, each 3 pages long, and handed one to his father and one to his mother. Upon seeing the method on the paper, Lei Batian frowned and said, "Son, this is too complicated. What does it mean to run qi to the dantian? Dad doesn't even know where the dantian is." Xingqian said, "Dad, the last page has information about human anatomy." Shen Lingxian said with a bitter face, "Dear son, I don't recognize most of the words on this page." Upon hearing his mother's words, Xingqian remembered that she had not studied. The words she recognized were all taught by his father out of necessity for life. Xingqian had no choice but to explain slowly to his mother what each character meant. Lei Batian held the human anatomy in his left hand and the method in his right, glancing back and forth between the two. Supreme Art has over 600 characters in the first level. Lei Batian read slowly, taking an hour to finish, and spent another hour studying it. After 2 hours, Lei Batian finally understood the content of the first level of the method. He said eagerly, "Wife, son, you take your time to study. I'm going to try it out and see if I can become a martial arts master." After saying this, Lei Batian rushed into the room to prepare for cultivation. Xingqian explained the method in detail to his mother until 6 o'clock, when she finally understood the content. It was summer and the sun had not yet set, but was about to. Xunlingxian said, "Dear son, go check on your father. I'll go make dinner." Xingqian quietly entered his parents' room. As soon as he entered, he heard his father muttering, "Why is it still a little off? Why does this spiritual energy run away faster than fish? I refuse to believe I can't send you into the Dantian." Xingqian saw that his father wasn't deeply cultivating and said, "Dad, it's time for dinner." Upon hearing his son's words, Lei Batian was distracted, and the spiritual energy he had just grasped slipped away again. Suddenly, he exclaimed in surprise, "Oh, the spiritual energy has entered the Dantian by itself." Lei Batian joyfully shouted, "Ha! I've made it. I succeeded." Xingqian said to Lei Batian, "Congratulations, Dad, you've successfully entered the threshold. According to the information in my mind, entering the threshold means you are a level 1 Xing Shi." Lei Batian happily said, "Whatever level it is, I feel so energized now, full of power. If a wild boar appeared before me, I'm confident I could smash its head with one punch." Xingqian said, "Dad, that's just brute force. Later tonight, I'll write down the usable techniques from the first level of Supreme Art for you, and you'll be even more powerful. Even tigers and lions, you could knock them out with one punch." Lei Batian said happily, "Ha! Good, good. Son, there will come a day when I become a martial arts master too." Xingqian said, "In the future, Dad will be even more formidable than the martial arts masters on television. Now that you've entered the threshold, you can absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into your Dantian without needing to cultivate actively. If Dad wants to speed up the cultivation process, he can meditate often to accelerate his progress." Lei Batian exclaimed in surprise, "Son, is there really such a good thing? I can improve without having to cultivate." Xingqian laughed, "Ha! Of course. The method Dad cultivates is not those martial arts manuals from television. Once the spiritual energy in Dad's Dantian accumulates more, the techniques used will be even more powerful." Lei Batian said, "Good, good. I've been cultivating for an entire afternoon. It's time to stretch out a bit." In the evening after dinner, Xingqian memorized the techniques. Lei Batian taught Xunlingxian, and she entered the threshold in half an hour. There are very few usable techniques in the first level of Supreme Art, only 3 types. Xingqian finished writing out 2 copies in 5 minutes. Seeing that his mother succeeded in entering the threshold in half an hour, Xingqian said, "Dad, Mom is more talented than you. You took an entire afternoon, while Mom only took half an hour." Upon hearing his son mock him, Lei Batian hurriedly said, "Son, your mother was able to enter so quickly because I taught her well as her master." Xunlingxian looked at the proud Lei Batian and said, "Originally, according to my cultivation method, I could have entered in a few minutes. I ended up taking so many detours, and in the end, I used my method to enter. I don't know how you succeeded." Xingqian laughed, "Hee. Mom, it was when you told me to call Dad that I called him, and that's how he accidentally entered the Lei Batian glared fiercely at Xingqian. Xunlingxian, seeing Lei Batian glaring at her son, said discontentedly, "Why are you glaring at my dear son? Today you're punished from sleeping on the bed." Lei Batian said, "Wife, if I can't sleep on the bed, where do you want me to sleep?" Xunlingxian replied, "Figure it out yourself." Xingqian said, "All right, Dad, Mom, look at the techniques I wrote for you. Once you remember them, burn them, just like the first level of Supreme Art." Lei Batian said, "Got it, son." After teaching his father and mother the cultivation technique Supreme Art and how to use its spells, Xingqian returned to his room. He had yet to unlock the second layer of Supreme Art in his mind, as he needed to raise his strength to break through a bit of the seal. Once Xingqian returned to his room and waited for his parents to fall asleep, he entered the Xingqian battleship and said, "Xiao Xilan, brother, is here to see you." Xiao Xilan had already appeared as soon as Xingqian entered the Xingqian battleship. Xiao Xilan could travel back and forth in the network of the Xingqian battleship as well as in reality. Xingqian saw Xiao Xilan jump down from the large screen in the command room and run to him. He hurriedly picked. Xingqian asked Xiao Xilan, "Have you missed your brother?" Xiao Xilan replied, "Brother, I missed you so much. When can I go to the outside world? I scanned the outside world and learned from the network that it's so much fun out there." Xingqian patted Xiao Xilan's little head and said, "The outside world is full of dangers, aren't you afraid?" Xiao Xilan proudly answered, "Brother, they can't defeat me. I am now a level 3-star warrior, and I can still cultivate." Hearing that Xiao Xilan could cultivate, Xingqian was both surprised and pleased, saying, "What? Xiao Xilan, you can cultivate. You have reached level 3-star warrior. I am still only a level 1-star warrior. Xiao Xilan said, brother, the person who helped me build my body gave me a small ball. I found the cultivation techniques he provided and some information inside it. That person also upgraded the Xingqian battleship. Now the battleship can evolve like a living being with countless amazing functions. Xingqian wondered, Xiao Xilan, why didn't I know about this? Xiao Xilan explained, I felt something in my mind after leaving the Xingqian battleship. I discovered that it was a small ball that contained some information. From that information, I learned that I could cultivate, and that the Xingqian battleship was modified by that person. Upon hearing Xiao Xilan's words, Xingqian thought to himself, that guy who claims to be my ancestor is too powerful. He helped Xiao Xilan modify her body in such a short time, and also upgraded the Xingqian battleship. I wonder if I will ever reach his level of strength. Xingqian said, Xiao Xilan, I don't understand a lot of knowledge right now. Can you teach me? Xiao Xilan happily replied, of course. Xingqian asked Xiao Xilan during class at school, can you teach me knowledge directly through brain waves? Xiao Xilan answered yes. Xingqian cheerfully said, that's great. By the way, does the Xingqian battleship have a training room? Xiao Xilan replied. Xingqian said, all right, from now on, I will cultivate in the Xingqian battleship every night, and you can wake me up in the morning. Xiao Xilan said, okay, brother. Xingqian said, then Xiao Xilan, take me to the training room now. Xiao Xilan led Xingqian to the training room, where Xingqian noticed some energy blocks on the floor, and asked Xiao Xilan, why are there energy blocks here? Xiao Xilan said, brother, don't you know that energy blocks can speed up cultivation? Xingqian shook his head, and replied, I really didn't know that. There is no such information in my mind. Xiao Xilan had to explain, brother, energy blocks are composed of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Cultivation mainly involves absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. When cultivating, placing the energy blocks around can accelerate the cultivation speed. You can also hold the energy blocks directly in your hand to absorb them, which speeds up the cultivation even more. However, cultivating this way can lead to unstable cultivation, which is very dangerous. There is a risk of losing cultivation or having it wasted. Generally, holding the energy blocks in hand to absorb them is only for replenishing energy consumed during battles. Xingqian said, all right, Xiao Xilan, I understand now. I will begin my cultivation. Xiao Xilan replied, okay, brother. He'll wake you up in the morning. Xingqian prepared to start cultivating void art. He sat cross-legged and searched for void art in his mind. As he looked at the contents of void art, he found that the technique appeared more profound than supreme art. The main outline of void art at the beginning, it slowly establishes a connection between all the cells in the body and the dantian. Cultivating void art involves absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into the dantian, which then transforms into void power through the dantian. The void power is then delivered to the cells that have established a connection with the dantian. When the void power reaches those cells, they undergo a mutation and transform into void cells. In the center of each void cell, a small void space is generated where the void power is stored. When the storage in the small void space reaches its limit, the void power collapses into a void core, causing the small void space to expand. Each collapse enlarges both the small void space and the void core. Every cell that establishes a connection with the dantian undergoes this transformation. When Xingqian transforms all the cells in his body into void cells, his cultivation of void art will reach a minor success stage. Thereafter, his task will be to continuously strengthen the cells in his body. Following the theoretical method, each of Xingqian's cells will become the legendary void space. At that time, how powerful will Xingqian be? After cultivating in the Xingqian battleship for an entire night, Xingqian barely established a connection with one cell when he heard Xiao Xilan's voice saying, brother, it's dawn, wake up quickly. Upon hearing Xiao Xilan say, it's dawn, Xingqian sighed, this void art is truly difficult to practice. I barely managed to establish a connection between the dantian and a cell in one night. There are countless cells in the human body, and even if I can connect with 100 cells in one day, I don't know how long it will take to connect with all of them. Others use the dantian to store energy, but void art is used as a converter. What if one day the converter breaks? My cultivation would no longer be able to improve. As the first experimental subject of void art, a tragedy could occur at any moment. Xiao Xilan, upon hearing Xingqian's lament, said, brother, stop lamenting. If you keep it up, your father will discover that you are missing. Xingqian replied, got it, Xiao Xilan. He returned to his room and said, after cultivating for an entire night, I don't feel tired at all. Instead, I feel even stronger. This void art is not worthless at all. In the morning, after Xingqian finished eating, both his parents went out to work in the fields. There was still one day left until National Day, and Xingqian would have to go to school tomorrow. After thinking it over, Xingqian decided to cultivate today and play with his friends tomorrow. He entered the Xingqian battleship again and said, Xiao Xilan, brother is here again. Xiao Xilan jumped down from the screen again and ran into Xingqian's arms. She said, brother, are you here to cultivate? Xingqian answered, yes, Xiao Xilan. Xiao Xilan pouted and said, brother, all you do is cultivate. You don't spend time with me. Xingqian replied, Xiao Xilan, when I cultivate, I am right by your side. Xiao Xilan said, brother, that's different. You need to play with me. Xingqian responded, all right, Xiao Xilan, how about I cultivate in the morning and play with you in the afternoon? Xiao Xilan, hearing that Xingqian would play with her, happily replied, "Okay, brother." Xingqian said, "Xiao Xilan, when my parents come back for lunch, wake me up, okay?" Xiao Xilan replied, "Got it, brother." Xingqian arrived at the training room of the Xingqian battleship once again. His body was an ethereal form, and his dantian was called the Void Dantian. The spiritual energy entering Xingqian's dantian would gradually evolve into void power. Xingqian seated himself and began to practice the void technique. The energy blocks in the training room emitted spiritual energy which entered Xingqian's body as he executed the void technique, flowing through his meridians towards the dantian. As soon as Xingqian inhaled the spiritual energy into his dantian, it vanished completely. After absorbing the energy for a whole hour, there was still no trace of void power in his dantian. Xingqian halted, glanced at the time, and realized he had been practicing for an hour. Still, there was no void power generated in his dantian, as the spiritual energy entering it was too scant to evolve into void power. Xingqian cursed, "Is this a joke? I've been practicing for an hour and still haven't seen a shadow of void power. I refuse to believe I can't produce void power." Xingqian hurriedly retrieved 2 energy blocks from the corner of the training room and absorbed them frantically. After consuming the 2 energy blocks, there was still no void power in his dantian. Xingqian sat directly in front of the pile of energy blocks, crazily absorbing one after another. He finally saw a tiny trace of void power after consuming over 20 energy blocks. Xingqian cursed again. "It took me a whopping 28 fist-sized energy blocks to generate just a tiny trace of void power. This consumption is too great. Even the wealthiest would go broke in no time. No, I must quickly modify the cells connected to my dantian, or else the void power will disappear, wasting another 28 energy blocks." Xingqian quickly executed the void technique, channeling the tiny trace of void power through the void thread, connecting his dantian to the cells, slowly delivering it to those cells. Suddenly, with a loud bang, Xingqian was blasted against the wall of the training room, slowly sliding down unconscious. Xiao Xilan suddenly heard the explosion in the training room and rushed through the circuits on the Xingqian battleship to the training room. Seeing Xingqian passed out, her face turned pale, and she was covered in blood, his clothes completely shredded. Xiao Xilan was startled by the sight and shouted, "Brother, what happened to you? You can't die." Xiao Xilan quickly checked Xingqian's condition, finding that he was not in mortal danger, allowing her to breathe a sigh of relief. She promptly activated the healing program. A beam of white light traveled through the network lines and enveloped Xingqian's entire body, gradually repairing his damaged skin and restoring the color to his pale face. This healing method utilized the healing program of the Xingqian battleship, drawing in spiritual energy from the heavens and earth to repair the injured areas. After a while, Xiao Xilan thoroughly examined Xingqian's body, and seeing that all his injuries had been healed, she turned off the healing program. Xiao Xilan exclaimed, "Brother, wake up, please wake up." After calling for a while, Xingqian finally regained consciousness. Looking at Xiao Xilan's red eyes, he asked, "Xiao Xilan, why are you crying?" Xiao Xilan, seeing Xingqian awake, joyfully said, "Brother, you finally woke up. I was so scared, or I thought I would never see you again." Xingqian wiped the tears from Xiao Xilan's tender face and warmly reassured her, "Xiao Xilan, don't cry. I am fine now, aren't I?" Xingqian patted his chest to prove he was all right. Suddenly he realized he was touching flesh, not clothing. Looking down, he found himself completely bare, his clothes reduced to shreds. Upon realizing this, Xingqian hurriedly covered himself. Seeing her brother's actions, Xiao Xilan laughed. "Brother, don't hide it. When I checked your injuries just now, I accidentally touched you." Xingqian's face turned beet red upon hearing Xiao Xilan's words, and he stammered, "Could you please find me some clothes to wear first?" Xiao Xilan nodded. "All right, brother." She waved her hand, and a set of clothes appeared before Xingqian. He quickly put them on after seeing them. Xingqian recalled how Xiao Xilan had made the clothes appear with a wave of her hand. He hurriedly asked, "Xiao Xilan, how did you conjure those clothes? Can you use magic?" Xiao Xilan replied, "Brother, I don't have that kind of ability. Look at what I have on my hand." Xingqian saw that Xiao Xilan was wearing a ring and said, "That's a ring. What does it have to do with changing clothes?" Xiao Xilan explained, "Brother, this ring on my hand is called a storage ring. It can store items inside and retrieve them later. The clothes just now came from this ring." Xingqian marveled, "That's amazing. A ring can hold things." Xiao Xilan replied, "Brother, it's not that incredible. A storage ring has a dimensional space created within it." Xingqian asked, "By the way, Xiao Xilan, did you make this storage ring?" Xiao Xilan shook her head, "Brother, I don't have that ability. The storage ring was found in the treasure chamber." Xingqian expressed confusion. "Xiao Xilan, I never heard you mention a treasure chamber before." Xiao Xilan explained, "Brother, there was no mention of a treasure chamber before, because when I encountered your ancestor, the Xingqian battleship was filled with treasures." Xingqian said, "Xiao Xilan, wasn't everything on the battleship taken by my ancestor? How is there still stuff left?" Xiao Xilan replied, "Brother, although your ancestor took many things from the battleship, he also left behind some items." Xingqian asked curiously, Are there still storage rings like this in the treasure chamber? Xiao Xilan replied, there are more than 10 storage rings left. Xingchen happily said, then bring one to me later. Xiao Xilan said, got it, brother. By the way, why did the explosion happen earlier? Xingchen pondered, I don't know why the explosion occurred. I was just following the void technique and channeling the void power to the cells when everything went dark and I passed out. When I woke up, I saw you, Xiao Xilan. Xiao Xilan asked, brother, while you were practicing, did you encounter any problems? Xingchen began to recall every step of his practice, confirming that he had been following the void technique without missing any steps. A few minutes later, Xingchen said, Xiao Xilan, I really didn't encounter any mistakes in my practice. Why did the void power suddenly cause an explosion when it reached the cells? Suddenly, he slapped his forehead and exclaimed, I remember. Xiao Xilan said, based on your deduction, the problem might really be with the cells. Xingchen replied, tonight I'll try again. Xiao Xilan, you must be ready to rescue me at any moment. Xiao Xilan replied, all right, brother. It's almost noon now, your parents are on their way back. You can go out now. Xingchen said, okay, Xiao Xilan, I'll go out now and come back to play with you in the afternoon. Xingchen emerged from the starship, noticing that his attire was completely out of place compared to the clothes on Earth, so he hurried back to his room to change. After changing his clothes, Xingchen stood in the yard for a moment when his father and mother returned. Being more observant, Shen Lingxian noticed Xingchen's change of clothes and curiously asked, son, why did you change your clothes? Xingchen couldn't explain that his clothes had gotten dirty and that he had changed. Even more, he couldn't mention that he had almost tarnished his reputation while practicing. After thinking for a moment, Xingchen said, Dad, Mom, hey, race the thing. While practicing the fire cloud palm this morning, I accidentally burned my clothes. Lei Beixian, upon hearing Xingchen's words, exclaimed in shock, what fire cloud palm? Son, besides burning your clothes, did anything else in the house get burned? We are poor, but if something gets burned, we lose everything. Did you burn any of the things from your dad and mom's wedding? Hearing his father's nagging, Xingchen replied, Dad, don't worry, I was practicing the fire cloud palm in the yard. Lei Beixian patted his chest and said, that's good, that's good. Shen Lingxian was displeased with Lei Beixian's reaction and said, you don't care about what kind of practice our son is doing or if he got hurt. Instead, you're worried about your shabby furniture. After hearing his wife's words, Lei Beixian turned to Xingchen and asked, right, son, did you get hurt? Xingchen replied, no, the fire cloud palm only burns external objects and doesn't harm my body. Lei Beixian said, son, you shouldn't practice that fire cloud palm anymore. Today you burned your clothes, tomorrow you might set our house on fire. At that point, our family would have to sleep under the moon and stars every night. Xingchen whispered, having the stars and moon to look at isn't so bad either. Lei Beixian asked, son, what are you mumbling about? Xingchen quickly replied, I wasn't mumbling about anything, I was just thinking about not practicing the fire cloud palm, and what to practice next. My mind is too cluttered. Shen Lingxian said, dear son, you need to be more careful when you practice. You only have 2 sets of summer clothes left. Our family is poor and mom doesn't have money to buy you new clothes. As she spoke, she couldn't help but shed tears. Seeing his mother in tears, Xingchen felt very distressed. The clothes he had ruined during his practice were the newest he owned, while the others were full of holes and patches. Xingchen firmly declared, Mom, I will be more careful in the future. One day I will earn lots and lots of money to buy Dad and Mom many new clothes and let them live a good life. Shen Lingxian lovingly hugged Xingchen and said, Mom knows you will, dear son, and you will definitely achieve it. After lunch, Xingchen finished eating and his parents took a short break before going back to work. Seeing that his parents had left, Xingchen searched around and entered the starship. Xiao Xilan, seeing Xingchen appear, quickly ran into his arms and said, brother, you're here. Xingchen asked him, what do you want to play with me, Xiao Xilan? Xiao Xilan thought for a moment and said, brother, shall we play? Xingchen replied, Xiao Xilan, what game? I've never played a game console before. Xiao Xilan said, I know what you mean by game console, but that's for beginners. We want to play a high-level game. Xingchen asked in confusion, what is a high-level game? Xiao Xilan replied, brother, you'll find out when you follow up. Xingchen followed Xiao Xilan into a large training room and saw rows of neatly arranged seats. Each seat had a helmet next to it along with various other equipment. After looking for a while, Xingchen asked Xiao Xilan, what are these for? Xiao Xilan said, brother, you'll know in a moment. Now sit in a seat, put the helmet on your head, and press that red button on the right side of the seat. Xingchen followed Xiao Xilan's instructions, sat in the seat, put the helmet on his head, and pressed the red button. Suddenly Xingchen felt darkness envelop him, and then bright light shone, transporting him to a peculiar world. Looking around, he quickly shouted, Xiao Xilan, where are you? Xiao Xilan, seeing Xingchen enter the virtual world, quickly transformed into a beam of light and entered, as well responding to Xingchen, brother, I'm behind you. When Xingchen turned around, he indeed saw Xiao Xilan. He hurriedly asked Xiao Xilan, what is this place? Wasn't I on the starship? Xiao Xilan explained, brother, this is the virtual world. Everything you see here is not real. Xingchen asked in confusion, but I feel like everything is exactly the same. He pinched his hand and said, Xiao Xilan, look, I can feel pain. Xiao Xilan explained, brother, this virtual world has reached 99% of reality, so of course you can feel pain. If it surpasses 99% and reaches 100%, then everything you see will be real, and this will become the real world. Xing Chen exclaimed, that's so magical. Xiao Xilan replied, of course it's magical. Even if you die in this virtual world, nothing will happen, at most you'll just have a headache. Xing Chen asked, so what are we going to play here? Xiao Xilan replied, we're going to hunt monsters. Xing Chen asked where. Xiao Xilan took Xing Chen's hand and said, brother, just follow us and you'll know. Suddenly Xing Chen felt a lightness under his feet, and he flew into the air, joyfully shouting, ha! I've taken off. Xiao Xilan, how did you do that? Xiao Xilan explained, brother, currently, you have no level in the virtual world. When you defeat monsters and gain experience and level up to a certain point, you will be able to fly. Xing Chen said, isn't that just like the outside world leveling up by defeating monsters? Xiao Xilan replied, it's somewhat similar, but this is incomparable to those games outside. Xiao Xilan flew faster and faster, and Xing Chen felt the scenery rushing by. Suddenly Xiao Xilan stopped and said, brother, we have arrived. Xing Chen looked around and saw endless grasslands with many strangely shaped animals. He asked, are we here to hunt monsters? Xiao Xilan said, yes, brother, the monsters here are the lowest level in the virtual world, only level 1. As Xing Chen and Xiao Xilan walked onto the grassland, Xiao Xilan pointed at a creature that resembled a sheep from Earth and said, brother, go up and defeat that monster. It's the weakest among the level 1 monsters. Xing Chen replied, okay, and walked towards the monster. The monster roared at Xing Chen as a warning, but as it saw Xing Chen approach, it became furious. The monster charged at Xing Chen with a loud roar. Seeing the monster suddenly rush towards him, Xing Chen clenched his fist, preparing to take it down with a punch. As the monster got closer, entering the attack range, Xing Chen suddenly charged at the monster, aiming for its head. With a loud bang, an object was sent flying, landing several meters away. It was not a monster, but Xing Chen. Xing Chen clumsily got up from the ground, feeling aches all over his body. Just as he steadied himself, the beast charged at him again. Unprepared, Xing Chen was once more knocked away with another bang, flying a full 10 meters before landing on. Xing Chen felt a sharp pain in his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. He glanced at the blood on the ground and wiped his mouth. Still unable to get up, Xing Chen saw the beast charging at him and shouted, Xiao Xilan, come save your brother, or I might lose my life. Xiao Xilan was lying on the grass, basking in the sun, humming a tune. Hearing Xing Chen's shout, she completely ignored him and continued to hum. Seeing that Xiao Xilan was ignoring him, Xing Chen was once again knocked away by the beast, flying over 10 meters and spitting out 3 mouthfuls of blood this time. Xing Chen called out to Xiao Xilan, why are you ignoring your brother? After calling her several times to no avail, the beast charged at him again, sending him flying dozens of meters and causing him to spit out more blood. Xing Chen slowly climbed up, realizing he was moving further away from Xiao Xilan now, about 50 or 60 meters apart. At that moment, the beast charged at him again, knocking him away. After getting up from dozens of collisions, Xing Chen thought, how am I still alive? Every time I just spit out some blood. Damn it, I'm not giving up. Ooh, I refuse to believe I can't take you down. Xing Chen struggled to rise from the ground, this time preparing to kick. As the beast approached, he shouted, Wind God. With a bang, Xing Chen was knocked away again. He had just failed to use the Wind God leg and lost his balance, falling back. Before he hit the ground, the beast collided with his sensitive area, sending him flying. In midair, Xing Chen felt excruciating pain and shouted, I'm still a virgin. Ew, I can't be ruined like this. As he landed, Xing Chen clutched his sensitive area and rolled on the ground, crying out, it hurts. It hurts. Please don't let it be ruined. I don't want to be a eunuch. There are so many beautiful girls waiting for me on Earth. While rolling on the ground, Xing Chen suddenly saw the beast charging at him again. He cursed loudly, damn it. How dare you hit my sensitive area? Today it's either you die or I do. Like a madman, Xing Chen got up and charged at the beast. This time he managed to land a few punches before getting knocked away, showing significant improvement. However, those punches were merely tickles to the beast. Each time he was knocked away and got back up, Xing Chen noticed he was making considerable progress, now able to trade blows with the beast for dozens of rounds. Half an hour later, the number of times Xing Chen was knocked away had decreased significantly. He could no longer feel the pain as he had become numb to it. Another half an hour later, Xing Chen was finally able to match the beast blow for blow. With each passing moment, he finally turned the tide. With a loud bang this time, it was not Xing Chen being knocked away, but the beast that was kicked into the air by Xing Chen. He quickly charged at the airborne beast and delivered another punch, sending it crashing to the ground. Xing Chen charged at the beast again, knocking it away, delivering punch after punch like a series of flying dreams. Seeing Xing Chen charging at him again, the beast turned to flee. Xing Chen, witnessing the beast attempting to escape, shouted angrily, damn it. I haven't had enough of a fight yet. How dare you try to run? Xing Chen rushed up and knocked the beast away once more. Seeing the beast struggling to get up, he scolded, weren't you tough just a moment ago? Are you trying to bully me? Today I'll show you how it feels to be bullied. Xing Chen charged at the beast, kicking it away repeatedly, just like kicking a ball. Xingqian continued to bully the beast, kicking it towards Xiao's island, shouting, "You bullied me so far away, I'll make sure to return the favor." Xingqian finally knocked the beast down beside Xiao's island and saw her getting up from the ground. He joyfully said, "Ha! Brother, we can have barbecue today." Xingqian asked Xiao's island, "Why didn't you respond when I called you earlier?" Xiao's island replied, "Brother, I was too into my song and didn't hear you." Xingqian said, "Is that so? The beast I fought with my life on the line, I get to decide the barbecue, and you don't get a share." Xiao's island replied, "If I don't get a share, then I'll go catch one myself." Xingqian watched as Xiao's island skipped over to the beast. Suddenly, the beast, towering over her, charged at her. Seeing Xiao's island balling her little fists and throwing a punch at the charging beast, it was sent flying toward Xingqian, who quickly ran away. Xiao's island walked in front of Xingqian proudly and asked, "Brother, how was that?" Xingqian gave her a thumbs up, saying, "Impressive. By the way, Xiao's island, what level are you in the virtual world?" Xiao's island replied, "Brother, I'm at the limitless level in the virtual world. No one can defeat me." Xingqian said, "This level of beast is so powerful. I was completely defeated at first. But why am I still alive despite my severe injuries?" Xiao's island explained that beast is indeed at the first level, and I set a life-saving command for you, so you won't suffer fatal injuries. You kept getting up from the brink of death, surpassing yourself, and finally defeated the beast, rising from level 0 to level 1. Xingqian said, "I knew it was your doing, Xiao's island. What's the benefit of reaching level 1? What are the requirements for level?" Xiao's island said, "Reaching level 1 allows you to use the spells you learned in reality in the virtual world. To reach level 2, you need to keep defeating beasts, and the system will naturally upgrade you after a certain point." Xingqian exclaimed, "It's amazing that you can use spells in the virtual world." Xiao's island replied, "Of course. The virtual world simulates the spell situations from reality. At level 1, you can only bind one spell. Which spell do you want to bind?" Xingqian said, "The void technique I practice can accommodate many spells, but to use the spells from the void technique, I need to successfully mutate a cell first. So I'll wait to bind the spell until I can use the spells from the void technique." Xiao's island said, "All right, brother." Xingqian asked Xiao's island, "How long have we been in this virtual world?" Xiao's island replied, 2.5 hours. Xingqian nodded and said, "Oh, that's still early. Let's have barbecue. I wonder what it feels like to eat in the virtual world." Xiao's island said, "Brother, wait a moment. After eating the roasted meat, you'll know what it tastes like." Starry and Xiao's island, one big and one small, began to busy themselves. After an hour, the aroma of the meat from the two bonfires wafted through the air, prompting Starry to exclaim, "It smells so good. I wonder how it tastes." Xiao's island was huddled by the bonfire, her little eyes fixed on the fragrant roasted meat, with small droplets of saliva occasionally dripping from her mouth. Unable to contain herself, Xiao's island shouted, "I can't hold back anymore." She dashed towards the grill and took the roasted meat down. Starry found the scene of Xiao's island quite peculiar. A little girl about 4 or 5 years old, with both hands grasping a piece of roasted meat several times her size, biting into it with all her might. As she took a bite, she exclaimed, "So fragrant and delicious." Starry also picked up his own roasted meat and started to eat. After taking a bite, he said, "Delicious. It feels just as satisfying as eating in reality." With grease all over her mouth, Xiao's island wiped her hands and said, "Brother, when I didn't have a body before, I didn't feel anything while eating roasted meat here. Now that I have a body, it feels so great." Starry asked, "Can you finish such a big piece of meat, Xiao's island?" Xiao's island replied, "In the virtual world, my stomach is a bottomless pit. I can eat as much as I want. However, you can't handle it, huh?" Starry said, "After eating a monster's leg, I'm full now." Xiao's island ran to Starry's side and said, "Brother, give me the meat you have left." Starry warned, "Be careful not to overeat." Xiao's island proudly said, "My little belly is a bottomless pit. I can't be stuffed." After eating his fill, Starry lay on the grass, gazing at the sky and contemplating. He recalled his parents' words about their family's poverty and resolved to give them a better life. Starry turned to Xiao's island and asked, "By the way, do you have a way to make money on Earth?" Xiao's island replied, "Brother, I know many ways to make money from the internet." Starry eagerly asked, "Xiao's island, tell me what methods you have." Xiao's island said, "Brother, first you need to..." Starry asked, "Then let's register." Xiao's island explained, "Brother, to register a company, you need funds and an ID card." Starry inquired, "How much does it cost to register a company?" Xiao's island responded, "At least several 100,000 is needed to set up a decent company." Starry was taken aback, thinking of the impoverished little mountain village, wondering where they could find that much money. He knew his entire fortune amounted to just a few hundred yuan. Starry exclaimed, "What? A few 100,000? My goodness. Xiao's island, please don't joke around." Xiao's island replied, "Brother, I'm not joking. It's just a few 100,000. I can easily hack into a bank to solve that problem." Starry quickly intervened, "Xiao's island, you must not do that. It's illegal, and I won't let you." Xiao's island said, "If that's not possible, then I have no other solutions." Starry thought for a moment and suddenly had a bright idea. Excitedly, he said, "Xiao's island, I have a way to solve the money issue. Don't we have many energy stones on the Starry warship?" These energy stones are called diamonds on Earth and are extremely valuable. Xiao Xilan joyfully exclaimed, why didn't I think of that? According to online information, diamonds are extremely rare on Earth. If we randomly take an energy block the size of a fist, it could sell for hundreds of millions. Starry was astonished. Xiao Xilan, is there really that much? I absorbed dozens of energy blocks while cultivating. How many hundreds of millions is that? I feel like such a spendthrift, ha. Xiao Xilan confirmed, of course. Starry continued, but where can we sell these diamonds? We can't let Dad and Mom know, and they must never go to sell them. That would put our whole family in danger. Xiao Xilan reassured, brother, you don't have to worry about selling diamonds. There are many robots on the Starry warship for maintenance, combat, command, production, and so on. Starry questioned, aren't the robots on the Starry warship taken away by that person? Xiao Xilan replied, no, all the robots on the Starry warship are still here. Starry asked, Xiao Xilan, do the robots look like humans? Xiao Xilan answered, brother, all the robots look just like humans. They possess independent thinking abilities and are no different from humans. However, these robots cannot possess emotions like Xiao Xilan. They only know how to obey orders. Starry asked, Xiao Xilan, if we send them to sell diamonds, won't they be deceived since they lack emotions? Xiao Xilan assured, brother, rest assured. They may lack emotions, but in the cutthroat business world on Earth, these robots will definitely not lose out. Starry happily said, that's great. We can send robots to sell diamonds. But how strong are the robots? Will they be robbed? Xiao Xilan replied, brother, they won't be. They can fly directly to Earth. Flying in space is very easy. One robot can easily take on an entire U.S. Navy fleet. Starry exclaimed, wow, that's amazing. They can fly in the universe. Isn't that like becoming legendary immortals? How many robots do we have on the Starry warship now? Xiao Xilan said, brother, there are a total of 100 robots on the Starry warship, most of which are stored in the warehouse. Only a few dozen robots are active on the Starry warship. Starry was stunned by Xiao Xilan's revelation, staring blankly at her. After a while, he finally said, my goodness, 100,000 robots. That's even more powerful than martial arts masters. Xiao Xilan looked at Starry's shocked expression and said, brother, what's so shocking about having 100 robots? Let me tell you, in the K-Sade Empire, they had even more robots beyond what words can describe. Starry declared, having 100 such powerful robots is already very satisfying. On Earth, I can find trouble with anyone I want, ha. Xiao Xilan watched Starry's excitement and smugness with discontent. She said, brother, I need to tell you, although there are 100 robots on the warship, currently your strength is low, and you can only take one robot out of the Starry warship. Starry complained, Xiao Xilan, isn't this a joke? Giving you a piece of cake and then telling you that you can't eat it is too painful. What on earth is going on? Xiao Xilan explained, brother, this is one of the rules imposed by that person who claims to be your ancestor on the Starry warship. Starry helplessly remarked, why is it always him? He's clearly just messing with me. Xiao Xilan said, brother, there is something even more astonishing. Your ancestors have reduced the defenses of the starship countless times, and the power of its weapons has also diminished tremendously, along with many other things. However, the advantages are still plentiful. The starship possesses the rules of the universe. Xingqian replied with dissatisfaction, enough about that, let's discuss how we can make money next. Xiao Xilan suggested, brother, we can send robots to sell bricks abroad and establish a company using our technology to develop a high-tech enterprise. Xingqian asked in confusion, why establish a company abroad? Would it not be better to do so domestically? Xiao Xilan explained, from what I understand, opening a company abroad is better than doing so at home. Once the company reaches a certain stage, we can then set up a branch domestically, which will benefit our development here. Xingqian contemplated and said, it does not matter where the company is established. My main goal is to ensure that Dad and Mom can live a good life, and then to help our country prosper and become strong. Xiao Xilan asked, brother, in which country shall we establish our company? Xingqian replied, Xiao Xilan, the countries I know are from television and books. It's entirely up to you where the company is opened. Xiao Xilan said, well then, brother, you must name the company yourself. Xingqian thought for a moment and declared, let's name it after me, Xingqian. Xiao Xilan responded, all right, brother. Xingqian added, however, it will take several years for the company to grow and cannot resolve our family's poverty immediately. Xiao Xilan stated, we are not just selling bricks, once we make money we can give it to your dad and mom. Xingqian shook his head saying, that won't work. What if Dad and Mom ask where the money came from? Xiao Xilan replied, it's simple, just tell them the truth. Xingqian shook his head again saying, not now. I just shared a lot of knowledge and skills with Dad and Mom, and that was already their limit of comprehension. He continued, if I tell them about you, Xiao Xilan, they might get a heart attack. Xiao Xilan said, brother, then I have no other solutions. Xingqian said, Xiao Xilan, think of another way. See what we can find in Longu village that can make money. Xiao Xilan responded, all right, brother, I will scan for options. After a few minutes, Xiao Xilan revealed an excited smile saying, Brother Longu Village is truly a treasure trove with rich mining resources. Additionally, behind Longu Village is a vast primeval forest filled with various animals and plants and many precious medicinal materials. Xingchen remarked, Xiao's Island, you mentioned that primeval forest, there are too many wild beasts. It is rumored that dragons live there. The people of Longu Village can only operate around the outskirts of the primeval forest. It is extremely dangerous to venture deep into it, as one could lose their life at any moment. Xiao's Island retorted, Brother, I didn't say you had to venture deep into the primeval forest. There are plenty of precious medicinal materials in the forests around Longu Village. If you want Dad and Mom to live a good life, it's quite simple. With the information in your mind, you can find medical resources based on the herbs you gather treating others and earning money, can't you? Xingchen laughed, saying, Haha. Hearing you say this, Xiao's Island, I feel that the impoverished Longu Village is filled with wealth, only that no one has utilized it yet. Xiao's Island added, Yes, brother, and this primeval forest is very large, but we can build a base within it. Xingchen asked, Great. Are you planning to build the base deep in the primeval forest? Xiao's Island responded, Well, I originally wanted to build the base at the center of the forest. However, there is a powerful life form in the central area of the forest stronger than me, which should have the power of a level 10-star warrior, according to my scans. For safety reasons, our base can only be built outside the central area of the primeval forest. Xingchen asked curiously, Could it be the legendary dragon? Xiao's Island replied, It's possible. Xingchen said, Xiao's Island, can you make a map of the areas around Longu Village where there are precious medicinal materials? Xiao's Island answered, No problem, brother. Xingchen then asked, By the way, when can we send the robots out? Xiao's Island replied, We can do it now. Xingchen stated, It's still broad daylight. Sending them out now would make us visible to others. Xiao's Island reassured, Brother, there's no need to worry. The robots can become invisible. Neither radar nor the naked eye can detect them. The robot currently has the strength of a level 11-star warrior. Xingchen exclaimed, Isn't that even stronger than the life form in the primeval forest? Xiao's Island affirmed yes. Xingchen inquired, Xiao's Island, can the robot go abroad without an ID? Xiao's Island replied, Of course it can fly directly abroad. Solving the ID issue is quite simple for Xingchen said, Xiao's Island, you can bring the robot that is going out here. I want to see it. Xiao's Island answered. After a while, a robot appeared before Xingchen and Xiao's Island, saying, Hello, Master. Greetings, Chief. Xingchen looked at the tall robot, which stood at 1.8 meters, and asked, Good, what is your name? The robot replied, Master, I do not have a name, only a code. My code is 0123. Xingchen announced, From now on you will be called Longxing. The robot responded, Understood, Master. Xingchen said, All right, Longxing, Xiao's Island has already told you. Longxing replied, Yes, Master. The chief just asked me to retrieve a storage ring and 10 energy stones from the treasure room. Xingchen instructed, That's good, keep it confidential. Longxing affirmed, Understood, Master. Xingchen said, Xiao's Island can release Longxing from the starship now. Xiao's Island replied, Okay, brother. Longxing exited the starship and appeared in Xingchen's home. Longxing concealed its body and flew towards the sky, returning to the starship only when Xingchen's parents came back. That evening, Xingchen returned to his room, locked the door, and went to the starship. Xiao's Island saw him and said, Brother, you're here. Xingchen said, Yes, tonight I want to test whether my cultivation is successful. Xiao's Island, you should be ready to save me at any time. Xiao's Island assured, Definitely. Xingchen arrived at the training room, and this time he was wise enough to wear the clothes Xiao's Island had given him last time instead of his earth clothing. Xingchen sat cross-legged and began to operate the void technique. With the experience from last time, he spent an hour establishing a connection between his cells and his dantian. To avoid a repeat of the previous explosion, Xingchen took 2 hours to fully establish the connection between his cells and his dantian, making the link between them much more robust. Xingchen halted his cultivation, approached the pile of energy stones, and fervently absorbed their energy. He consumed over 30 energy stones, and a strand of more potent void power emerged within his dantian. Xingchen ceased absorbing energy stones and said to Xiao's Island, I'm about to begin. If there's an explosion, you must let me know immediately, okay? Xiao's Island nodded her little head and replied, Got it, brother, you can start now. Danger loomed at any moment, and Xingchen's life was at stake. He sat cross-legged and began to operate the void technique, while the void power in his dantian slowly circulated under his guidance. Xingchen controlled the void power, making it rotate continuously within his dantian. With each passing moment, he became more proficient in manipulating the void power, which began to perform various maneuvers at his command. Half an hour later, Xingchen could instantly execute various movements with the void power in his dantian. Next, he carefully guided the void power closer to the boundary connecting the dantian to his cells. Gradually, the void power made contact with the boundary, inching closer to the cells through this connection, narrowing the distance between the void power and the cells. After a while, the void power reached the cells, marking a critical moment. The outcome hung in the balance. Success was possible, but so was the risk of Xingqian suffering severe injury or even death. Xingqian cautiously controlled the void power as it approached the cells. In an instant, the void power made contact with the cells, and fortunately no explosion occurred. Xingqian realized he was halfway to success. Without time to revel in his success, Xingqian operated the void technique, merging the void power with the cells. Under the influence of the void power, the cells slowly began to undergo transformation. The void power gradually devoured the cells, transforming them piece by piece. After a while, the cells were completely transformed into void cells, bringing Xingqian closer to success. Next, another dangerous moment arrived. Xingqian concentrated the remaining void power in the center of the cells, preparing to unleash it using the special technique of the void technique, creating a small void space. If successful, he would master the void technique. If he failed, he risked exploding. Xingqian thought to himself, whether I succeed depends on now. I must succeed, and he began to execute the technique, shouting explode. With a loud bang, Xingqian immediately fainted. Xiao Xilan, startled by his sudden collapse, rushed to check his condition. Strangely, she found no injuries on Xingqian's body, but she could not sense his soul. Xiao Xilan thought, could it be that brother's soul has vanished? This thought terrified her, turning her face pale. She began to cry, pleading, brother, you can't die. You can't leave Xiao Xilan all alone. In the instant he fainted, Xingqian's soul was drawn into the void space he had created within the cells. Suddenly he felt his body lighten, and he found himself in a strange place. Xingqian observed the surrounding haze and wondered, where is this? It looks so gray. Wasn't I cultivating the void technique? As he wandered about confused, he found nothing but endless grayness. While walking, Xingqian spotted a peculiar little stone ahead. He squatted down and reached out to pick it up. Suddenly he froze. He noticed that his hands were also gray. Looking at his other hand, and then other parts of his body, he realized that he was entirely gray, just like the surrounding environment. Xingqian gasped, am I dead? Is this hell? No way. I can't die, and my father and mother still need me. I can't die. Trembling in fear, he sat down on the ground. Unfortunate Xingqian fell onto that strange stone and suddenly yelled, ah, it hurts. He jumped up from the ground, hopping around while rubbing his backside. Strangely, after jumping a few times, the pain in his backside vanished. Xingqian checked and found no injury. Xingqian pondered, why did it feel painful? Could it be that I'm not dead? That's great. But what is this place and how? He thought, wasn't I cultivating the void technique? How did I end up in this strange place? Could this be the void space of the cells? It can't be. The void technique clearly states that the void space created within the cells is a tiny white void space. It shouldn't be this vast. Could it be that the cultivation of the void technique underwent a mutation? That's possible, but I was following the standard practices outlined in the technique. There shouldn't have been any mistakes. Xingqian was extremely displeased, thinking it's all that so-called ancestors' fault for making me the first test subject. And this cursed place is boundless. I've walked for so long without seeing anything. In the void realm, Lei Shiwu, who gifted Xingqian the void technique, claimed to be Xingqian's ancestor. Suddenly, he sensed Xingqian's soul had disappeared. He immediately broke through the space to reach Xingqian's cultivation chamber, finding no injuries on him, but his soul was undetectable. Lei Shiwu thought, could he be dead? Let's see if his soul is in the soul realm. Lei Shiwu quickly entered the soul realm, using his void consciousness to search for Xingqian's soul. He scoured the entire soul realm, but found no trace of it. Stunned, he thought the soul has vanished, turned to dust. It can't be. Xingqian wandered in the gray space for what felt like years, eventually becoming tired and lying down to sleep. Each time he awoke, he felt himself growing stronger, and in this place, he felt no hunger. Xingqian noticed a large stone ahead and climbed onto it, relaxing his body as he lay back, wondering, how vast is this place? When will I reach the end? Suddenly, Xingqian felt as though he was flying. Just as he attempted to open his eyes, he bumped into something and exclaimed, ah, it hurts. In the cultivation chamber, Xiao Xilan suddenly saw Xingqian leap up from the ground, screaming in distress. She was overjoyed to see him alive again. Xiao Xilan jumped into Xingqian's arms, exclaiming, brother, you're alive. That's wonderful. Xingqian felt a pair of small hands embracing his neck, and he heard the voice of Xiao Xilan. Opening his eyes, he looked around at the familiar surroundings and joyfully exclaimed, haha, I've returned, leaving that place of death behind. Xiao Xilan said, whoa, brother, what happened to you just now? I thought you were dead. Xingqian gazed at Xiao Xilan's tear-streaked face, gently wiping away her tears as he affectionately said, Xiao Xilan, don't cry. How could I possibly die? I still need to take care of you, Xiao Xilan, and look after our father and mother. Suddenly, another person appeared in the cultivation room, joyfully addressing Xingqian, kid, it's great that you're alive. Xingqian's eyes widened as he saw a handsome older brother standing before him, and in confusion, he asked, your voice sounds so familiar. Who are you? Kid, you don't recognize me. I am Lei Shiwu, the ancestor who bestowed upon you the void technique. Upon hearing this, Xingqian felt a surge of anger and exclaimed, What nonsense technique did you give me? I almost died. Do you even realize that? Lei Shiwu replied, Kid, I came to save you, didn't I? Thinking that perhaps he was the one who brought him out of that hellish place, Xingchen said, So it was you who saved me, yeah? Lei Shiwu responded, I didn't do it was you. Confused, Xingchen asked, If it wasn't you who saved me, then how did I get out? Lei Shiwu asked, Kid, when you say you arrived in another place, what kind of place was it? Xingchen replied, My respected ancestor, how would I know what kind of place it was since you don't even know? Lei Shiwu, feeling awkward from Xingchen's words, said, Could you describe the characteristics of the place you visited? Xingchen said, That damned place was nothing but gray and dreary. Do you know what kind of place that is? Hearing this, Lei Shiwu was puzzled. A gray and dreary space above the void realm, there was a legendary supreme realm. But according to legend, the supreme realm was not gray. Could it be an undiscovered space? Seeing his ancestor deep in thought, Xing-Chun impatiently asked, Have you thought of anything? Do you know what that? Lei Shiwu replied, I don't know. Xing-Chun said, If you don't know, why did you take so long? What a waste of time. Lei Shiwu then asked, By the way, how did you end up in that place? Xing-Chun furiously replied, Isn't it because of your damn technique, which caused the void power to explode within my cells? The moment it exploded, I ended up in that damned place. Do you have any idea what happened? Lei Shiwu said, I don't know. Xing-Chun was extremely dissatisfied and retorted, How can you be such an ancestor and know nothing? Feeling embarrassed by Xing-Chen's words, Lei Shiwu tried to cover it up, saying, Your ancestor is not omnipotent. The universe is vast, and there are many unknowns waiting for us to explore. The place you went to is just one of those unknowns. Xing-Chun felt the connection to the modified cell in his dantian vanish and said, Respected ancestor, please check what is happening inside my body. That modified cell has disappeared. Lei Shiwu, feeling helpless, replied, I already checked a moment ago. Your body is intact and shows no anomalies. I don't know what happened to that modified cell either. Xing-Chun felt resigned. If even his ancestor didn't know what was going on, he could only go with the flow. He said, Do you have any other techniques? I can no longer cultivate that void technique. Who knows what problems might arise next? Lei Shiwu replied, Your dantian is the void dantian, and you can't cultivate other techniques now. Xing-Chun shouted, What do you mean it's gone? You must be joking. Lei Shiwu said, Kid, unless you are reborn. Xing-Chun replied, Rebirth is impossible. How about you change my body back from being void? Lei Shiwu replied helplessly, I can't help you revert back. If I try to modify your body again, it will explode instantly. The power of such an explosion is immense, and the low-level space you are in will vanish as well. If you want to raise your cultivation, you can only continue practicing the void technique. Xing-Chun said, My esteemed ancestor, cultivate that ridiculous technique again. I really don't know what problems might occur next. Just give me a few hundred longevity pills, and I won't cultivate anymore. Lei Shiwu scolded, You have no ambition. How did I ever take a liking to you, a useless person? If you don't cultivate, just wait to die. Upon hearing this bastard call him useless, Xing-Chun angrily shouted, I'm not useless. You are the one who is useless. It's just a life, if I die, so be it. One day, I will make you the bastard regret it. Lei Shiwu laughed, Haha. Not bad, not bad. Even a rotten wood can be carved. Xing-Chun cursed, Bastard, you're messing with me. Lei Shiwu replied, I am messing with you, go ahead and bite me. Xing-Chun said, Bastard, I will surely beat you to the ground one day, turning you into a pig's head. I will use every method to torment you. Lei Shiwu laughed heartily, Ha. Kid, I look forward to that day arriving soon. Xing-Chun shouted, How can there be such shameless and despicable people in this world? The ancients said, Well, the most despicable person is invincible. Lei Shiwu proudly said, Actually, that saying was originally mine. Xing-Chun exclaimed, I can't take it anymore. This is too shameless and filthy. Lei Shiwu said, Kid, I'm leaving now. Goodbye. Xing-Chun roared, Get lost. Lei Shiwu laughed madly, Ha. So refreshing. Xing-Chun weakly turned to Xiao Xilan and said, Xiao Xilan, how can there be such shameless people in this world? Xiao Xilan shook her head and replied, Brother, I don't know. Xing-Chun asked, Xiao Xilan, what time is it now? Xiao Xilan replied, It will be dawn in an hour. Xing-Chun said, An hour is enough to establish a connection between the cells and the dantian. Xiao Xilan, brother, will continue to cultivate. Xing-Chun sat down in a meditative posture, preparing to run the technique. Suddenly, he felt something pass through his mind, and he used his mental power to check the situation in his brain. In the center of his consciousness, Xing-Chun saw a gray orb. A word appeared in his mind's source. Xing-Chun thought, What exactly is this source? How did it enter my mind? Indeed, it was gray in color, just like in that damned place. Could it be that I entered that damned place because of this sign? Suddenly having an orb in my mind, will I have problems in the future? Never mind, whether it's a blessing or a curse, I can't escape it. This orb I shall call you Source Pearl. Xing-Chun withdrew his mental power from the consciousness and began to cultivate. Having had 2 experiences connecting with the cells, Xingqian spent a few minutes establishing a connection with the Dantian, continually perfecting the connection and thickening the void lines. After completing all tasks related to the cell connection, Xiao Xilan's voice rang in Xingqian's mind. Xingqian said, "Got it, Xiao Xilan. Brother Xiao Xilan has gone out." Xingqian exited the Xingqian battleship, eager to play with friends today, as classes would resume tomorrow. In the morning, after finishing breakfast, Xingqian arrived at his uncle's house. He saw his Aunt Zhou Xiaomei hanging clothes and greeted her, "Good morning, Aunt." Upon hearing Xingqian's greeting, Aunt Zhou turned around and was momentarily stunned. Looking at Xingqian's very fair skin, she exclaimed in surprise, "Xiao Xingqian, come here, let me take a look at you." Xingqian walked over to his aunt, who pinched his face and remarked, "Xiao Xingqian, how has your skin become so good, so tender, smooth, and white?" Xingqian jokingly replied, "And I've been conducting a skin whitening experiment at home these past few days. I didn't expect to succeed, and my skin has transformed to what it is now." Aunt Zhou, hearing this, kissed Xingqian and said, "Xiao Xingqian, doesn't Aunt usually pamper you a lot?" Xingqian nodded. Aunt Zhou continued, "Then look at Aunt's skin, dark and rough. Aren't you?" Xingqian replied, "And I'm really sorry. I've used all the herbs on myself, and I've run out. Even Mom didn't get any." Seeing his aunt's disappointment, he added, "But don't worry, Aunt, I'll go gather herbs on the mountain next vacation to help both you and Mom whiten your skin." Aunt Zhou kissed Xingqian again and said, "Then thank you in advance, Xingqian." Xingqian waved his hand and said, "Aunt, you're too polite." He recalled some whitening methods in his mind and thought they would perfectly cover up his skin's recent changes. Aunt Zhou said, "Xiao Tian is still sleeping in bed. He needs to rest well since he has class tomorrow." After eating, he ran back to bed. Xingqian said, "All right, I'll go wake him up." He dashed toward Li Yixin's room and burst in, finding Lei Tian pretending to be asleep under the covers. Xingqian exclaimed, "Xiao Tian, wake up, stop pretending." Seeing Li Yixin's lack of response, he added, "If you don't get up, I'll have to resort to severe measures." Lei Tian threw off the blanket and complained, "How many times have I told you not to call me Xiao Tian? You should call me Tian Gu." Xingqian shot back, "You're only a few days older than me. Why should I call you Tian Gu?" Lei Tian said, "All right, enough about that. What have you been doing hiding at home these past few days? When I wanted to play with you, you said you were busy." Xingqian mysteriously replied, "I've been researching pathways to wealth." Lei Tian scoffed, "You think you can discover a pathway to wealth? Then tell me, what have you figured out?" Xingqian replied, "Just look at the changes on my face." This time Lei Tian noticed Xingqian's face and hands, and he exclaimed in surprise, "Wow, wow. So white, even whiter than our homeroom teacher's skin." Xingqian proudly said, "This is the result of my research these past few days." Lei Tian hurriedly said, "Xingqian, look at my skin, it's as dark as charcoal from the sun. Hurry and share your research findings." Xingqian replied, "I've used up all the herbs. I need to go gather some more on the mountain." Lei Tian quickly got up and said, "Let's go gather them now." Xingqian said, "That place is quite far from our Longu village, and we have classes tomorrow. Let's go next weekend instead." Lei Tian replied, "All right." Xingqian said, "Xiao Tian, get up quickly, let's go out to play." Lei Tian asked, "Where are we going?" After thinking for a moment, Xingqian said, "Let's find our little brothers and gather everyone from our Tianqing team today. I have researched herbs that can whiten skin, and I want the members of the Tianqing team to help me gather herbs on the mountain. Their physical fitness is too poor, so it would be dangerous to go up there without training. We must train them well to improve the strength of our Tianqing team, so I can feel assured that they can help us gather herbs." Lei Tian nodded and said, "Xingqian, you make a good point. Let's gather them now." Xingqian responded, "Okay." Xingqian and Lei Tian are cousins with a particularly good relationship, often teaming up to bully the kids from their village. Under Xingqian and Li Yixin's guidance, these kids formed a small team. The team consists of 10 members, including Xingqian and Lei Tian, totaling 12. They named the team Tianqing Team, taking one character from each of their names. The Tianqing team has 8 boys and 2 girls, with the youngest being a 6-year-old kid and the oldest being 11, who is 1 year older than Xingqian. Xingqian cannot compete with the older ones. The boys in the Tianqing team are Lei Guoqiao, Lei Xiaohan, Lei Gusong, Lei Lufeng, Lei Pingan, Lei Huaichuan, Lei Zuifeng, and Lei Haiyun. The girls are Lei Lingxian and Lei Lingxiang, with Lei Lingxiang being the youngest member of the team. Xingqian initially didn't plan to let Lei Lingxiang join the Tianqing team, but Lei Lingxiang found it amusing to follow Xingqian and his large group, sweetly calling him Brother Xingqian and Tian Gu every day. Xingqian and Lei Tian couldn't bear to send away the adorable Lingxiang, so they allowed her to join the Tianqing team. After about 10 minutes, Xingqian and Lei Tian searched throughout Longu village to gather everyone. Lingxiang looked at Xingqian sweetly and asked, "Brother Xingqian, what are we playing today?" Xingqian felt a headache coming on as he looked at Lingxiang. He replied, "Lingxiang, we're not playing games today. Brother needs to train our Tianqing team to improve everyone's physical fitness. If you can't keep up, you must call for me, okay?" Lingxiang nodded seriously. Xingqian said, "All right, let's run 10 laps around Longu village to start." Upon hearing this, Lei Tian shouted, "What? 10 laps? Xingqian, are you kidding me?" Xingqian replied, "Xiao Tian, as one of the leaders of the Tianqing team, you're not running 10 laps, you're running 20. Lei Tian protested, "You need to run 20 laps too." Xingqian shook his head and said, "I plan to run 40 laps." Lei Tian was astonished. 40 laps. That would take all morning to finish. Xingqian said, all right, Xiao Tian, you lead, and I'll follow behind. Lei Tian agreed okay. Lei Tian took the lead and the 8 boys of the Tianqing team ran ahead with the 2 girls following behind. Xingqian trailed behind Lingxiang. After just a few meters, Lingxiang was panting, and her face turned bright red, making her tender little face even cuter. Xingqian couldn't bear to see her struggle and said, if Lingxiang is tired, just stop. Lingxiang bravely replied, Xingqian, I can do it. The Tianqing team continued running for several dozen meters, but Lingxiang had fallen far behind. Xingqian stayed beside her, noticing the sweat beads sliding down her little face, which was flushed with redness. Xingqian said, Lingxiang, if you're tired, stop. If you overexert yourself, your mother will definitely come looking for me. Lingxiang stubbornly replied, brother, I can still run. Thud. Lingxiang kicked a stone and fell forward. Xingqian was startled. The path was all stones, and if Lingxiang fell, it would be problematic. Xingqian quickly sped up and caught Lingxiang before she fell forward, sighing in relief as he said, Lingxiang, are you? Xingqian gently shook his head and said, it's nothing. Little Lingxiang replied, okay. Xingqian said, if it's nothing, that's good. Little Lingxiang, you must be tired from running. Sit down and take a rest before running again. Little Lingxiang sweetly responded, okay. Xingqian helped her sit down by the roadside and said, you just sit here and rest while watching your brother run. Little Lingxiang said, Xingqian replied, then I will go run first. Xingqian ran towards the team, which was already over 100 meters away. After a few seconds, he caught up with the team and then surpassed them. Lei Tian and the others felt a gust of wind pass by, and then they saw Xingqian getting farther away from them. Without realizing it, they stopped in awe, staring at Xingqian. Lei Tian came back to his senses and exclaimed, wow, so fast. Is this Xingqian's speed? Lei Gusong said, is this the speed of our boss Xingqian? Damn, it's too fast. Lei Tian said, everyone run quickly, we need to catch up. Lei Gusong replied, Boss Tian, we can't catch up with Xingqian anymore, he has already disappeared from sight. Lei Tian said, even if we can't catch up, we still need to run fast. If we fall too far behind, it will be After a few minutes, Lei Tian and the others finally finished a lap. Suddenly another gust of wind blew past them. Lei Tian looked at the distant Xingqian and said, is this even human? We ran as a group, but that kid Xingqian has already run 2 laps. Comparing people makes one feel inferior. Running beside Lei Tian, Lei Haiyun said, Boss Tian, have you noticed that Xingqian's speed hasn't slowed down? He's still running at the same pace as before. Lei Tian looked at the increasingly distant Xingqian and said, this is too fast. Xingqian could participate in the Olympics. Half an hour later, the people of Longgu village watched as Xingqian and his team ran, puzzled by this little group who usually dominated the village. Why were they running today? Had they lost their minds? Some grandfathers and grandmothers looked at their grandchildren running and seeing them panting said with concern, Haiyun, you're tired. Stop and rest for a bit. Lei Haiyun said firmly, Grandpa, I'm not tired. His grandfather replied, look at you, you can barely catch your breath. Stop and rest for a bit before running again. Lei Haiyun said, Grandpa, Xingqian has already run over 10 laps. I haven't even run half of what he has. I must persevere. His grandfather angry said, you little rascal, are you ignoring what your grandpa said? Lei Haiyun replied, okay, Grandpa. They'll stop when I can't run anymore. Xingqian ran over 20 laps and slowed down considerably. He saw a weaker figure running slowly and noticed that her clothes were soaked. Xingqian approached and said, little Lingxiang, your clothes are wet. You should stop running here today and go back to change your clothes, or you might get sick. Little Lingxiang panting said, brother, I can still run. Seeing little Lingxiang's strong spirit, Xingqian only hoped that she wouldn't fall ill and continued to run. An hour passed. Xingqian finally completed 40 laps, and under his encouragement, Lei Tian ran 13 laps. The other boys ran 9 laps, the girl Lei Lingxian ran 7 laps, and little Lingxiang ran 3 laps. Xingqian ran back to little Lingxiang and saw her drenched in sweat. He said with concern, little Lingxiang, you don't have to run anymore. Brother will take you home to change your clothes. Little Lingxiang also felt that she couldn't run anymore and said, Xingqian took little Lingxiang home. Noticing her weak legs, he said, little Lingxiang, brother will carry you home. Little Lingxiang nodded her little head and said, okay. Xingqian picked her up and walked toward her home. When they reached, Xingqian shouted, Auntie, Auntie. Xingqian's father and little Lingxiang's father are cousins. Little Lingxiang's father Wang Bingping lives in a village next to Longgu village. Hearing Xingqian's call, he replied, it's Xingqian. What's the matter? Xingqian said, Auntie, please quickly change little Lingxiang's clothes, they are soaked. Wang Bingping hurried out of the house upon hearing Xingqian's words. He saw that Xingqian was also drenched and noticed that little Lingxiang in his arms was also soaked. Wang Bingping asked, Xingqian, what happened? Did little Lingxiang fall into the river? Xingqian quickly explained, Auntie, she didn't fall into the river. Hey Race, what happened? He recounted how little Lingxiang had followed him and the Tianqing team to run. Xingqian continued, Auntie, I'm really sorry. Wang Bingping looked at his daughter hiding in Xingqian's arms and helplessly said, Xingqian, as long as Xiang'er plays with you I won't mind, but you all need to be careful while playing, understand? Xingqian hurriedly replied, understood, auntie. Please quickly change little Ling Xiang's clothes. Wang Bingping said, okay, and picked up little Ling Xiang from Xingqian's arms. After sending little Ling Xiang home, Xingqian returned to the running venue watching the members of the Tianqing team run. After a little over 10 minutes, the 8 boys finished 10 laps. Xingqian looked at the panting Ling Xian and said, Ling Xuan, your clothes are completely soaked. You should stop running here today and quickly go home to change. 80-year-old Lei Ling Xian listened to Xingqian and replied, Xingqian said to the 8 male members of the Tianqing team, everyone take a break, take off your soaked clothes, and let them dry. Once Xiaotian finishes, I will teach you all martial arts. Lei Haiyun exclaimed, Boss Xingqian, you know martial arts. Lei Zuifeng and the others also asked, Boss Xingqian, do you really know martial arts? Xingqian replied, I don't know if it's martial arts, but I found a book called Thunder Palm at home. It says that if practiced to a certain level, one can release lightning. I don't know if it's true. Lei Haiyun gasped, Boss Xingqian, is it really that powerful? Xingqian said, that's what the book says. I don't know if it's true, but regardless, aside from our Tianqing team, you must not tell anyone else, including your parents, understood? Lei Haiyun asked, what if someone tells others? Xingqian replied, I trust that everyone will not tell anyone else, including your parents, because we are all brothers. If someone leaks the martial arts manual, then everyone in our Tianqing team will be in danger, and even your parents could be at risk. If anyone leaks the martial arts manual, don't blame me for being rude. Everyone gather around. Seeing everyone gathered around, Xingqian pointed to a fist-sized stone and said, everyone watch closely. He crushed the fist-sized stone, leaving everyone speechless in shock. Xingqian continued, this is the benefit of practicing the martial arts manual. Lei Haiyun shouted, Boss, please teach us. Xingqian said, displeased, you little rascal, keep your voice down. And everyone, once you've practiced the martial arts manual, don't show it off in front of others. Lei Haiyun whispered, when can we show it off? Xingqian replied, only when we are strong enough can we Lei Haiyun asked, Boss, when will that be? Xingqian said, that depends on everyone's effort. Also, I want to teach you martial arts secrets right now, but your physical fitness is too poor. Once your physical condition improves, I will teach you martial arts. I have established a training plan here. Everyone will get up at 5 a.m. every day and must gather here by 5:10 a.m. After morning training, we will eat breakfast and head to school. Since we will spend noon at school, everyone's task during this time is to read books and complete the assignments given by the teachers in the morning. After school in the evening, we will run back to Lungu village. Once we return, everyone will train for another hour. This is the plan for now. Lei Xiaohan said, Boss, I can't wait any longer. Can you teach us now? Xingqian replied, I will teach you in a month. Your physical fitness is too poor, and practicing Thunder Palm now will yield very slow results. I ask you, would you rather chop wood with an unsharpened knife or with a sharpened knife? Lei Pinggan said, Boss, does that even need to be asked? Of course it's better to use a sharpened knife to chop wood. Xingqian said, you are currently like an unsharpened knife. A month of rigorous training will also test your willpower. If you cannot persist, it means your will is weak and you are not suited for martial arts training. Practicing martial arts will only bring you trouble. If you give up halfway, you might become useless. I hope everyone understands what I mean. Lei Haiyun and others chorused, Boss, we understand. After another 10 minutes, Lei Tian finally completed 20 laps and ran over exclaiming, Wow, I'm exhausted. What are you all talking about? Lei Haiyun replied, Boss, Xingqian will teach us martial arts later. Lei Tian was surprised and said, Xingqian, I never heard you say you know martial arts. Xingqian said, I learned some from books at home, but later I will teach you some fighting techniques, which can also be considered martial arts. Lei Tian ran to Xingqian's side and asked, Xingqian, what martial arts do you know? Lei Haiyun leaned close to Lei Tian's ear and whispered, Boss, Xingqian said he will teach us Thunder Palm next month. Lei Tian asked in confusion, why wait until next month? I want to see what martial arts you who play with me every day know right now. Xingqian said to Lei Haiyun, Haiyun, repeat what I just said to Xiao Tian. After that I will teach everyone some fighting techniques. Lei Haiyun replied, understood, Boss Xingqian. After another 10 minutes, Lei Haiyun explained everything clearly in just a few minutes. Lei Tian rested for 10 minutes, recovering some strength. Xingqian shouted, break time is over. Now everyone line up. We will first practice horse stance until lunch. In the afternoon, I will teach you other things. Xingqian looked at everyone who was lined up and said to Lei Tian, Xiao Tian, you should also stand in the line. Lei Tian complained, I am also the boss, who I should stand here. Xingqian replied, all right, but you have to follow my commands. Lei Tian said, okay. Xingqian addressed the members of the Tianqing team. Everyone raise your arms parallel to your shoulders, look straight ahead, and slowly squat down, just like you usually do when sitting on a chair. Xingqian saw that everyone had squatted properly and expressed satisfaction, saying, everyone is doing very well. However, after a while, some people couldn't hold it anymore and sat down. Xingqian said, Xiaohan get up and Lei Xiaohan said, boss, I'm too exhausted. Let me rest a bit. Xingchen noticed 2 or 3 others also sitting down and saw Lei Tian sitting down as well. He disapprovingly said, Xiao Tian is the boss, how can you sit down first? Lei Tian replied, Xingchen, I'm just too tired. Let's take a break. Xingchen said, no way. You all couldn't even last a minute, you're all useless. Lei Tian angrily said, I'm not useless. Xingchen said, then why are you sitting down? Everyone keep going. Talk to each other to distract yourself, share some jokes, or discuss problems you encounter in your studies. Lei Xiaohan said, boss, let's share some jokes first. Xingchen said, all right, everyone must share one. Lei Haiyun said, boss, I don't know any jokes. Xingchen said, members of the Tianxing team cannot say they don't know. I will start with a joke, and then it will be Xiao Tian's turn. Xingchen began to tell a joke. This tactic was truly effective. Everyone managed to hold on for at least a minute before faltering. Xingchen looked at those sitting on the ground and said, if you falter, get back up and continue. We are not useless. We are the heroes guarding Longgu village from being destroyed by beasts from the primordial forest. We are heroes. The members of the Tianxing team echoed, we are heroes. Longgu village was once an isolated place, only becoming known to the outside world during the anti-Japanese war. Before it was known, the villagers survived by hunting. To reach the outside world, the villagers had to traverse a steep cliff path where they risked falling at any moment. Later, the village built several bridges connecting them to the outside world, making it safer for them to go out. Although walking on the suspension bridge swayed continuously and the abyss below seemed endless, it felt scary at first, but eventually one would get used to it and fear would dissipate. While standing in the horse stance, some occasionally fell, but they got back up. From holding for a minute before faltering, they slowly progressed to holding for a minute and a half before faltering, and now everyone could at least hold for 2 minutes before faltering. Xingchen looked up at the sun overhead. It was noon. He said, everyone go home for lunch. After eating, we will gather again under this big tree. The members of the Tianxing team responded, understood, boss Xingchen. Lei Tian looked at Xingchen, who was still energetic, and asked, Xingchen, aren't you tired? My legs feel like they are not even mine anymore. Xingchen replied, Xiao Tian, this shows that we didn't waste the morning. It was very worthwhile. Lei Tian said, Xingchen, I can barely move now. Can you carry me home? Xingchen replied discontentedly, Xiao Tian, you are the leader of the Tianxing team. Don't be like this, you should crawl home if you have to. The other members of the Tianxing team felt weak in their legs, stumbling a bit, but then getting back up, rushing home. Xingchen observed this scene and thought, it seems the training task is a bit too heavy. If I don't strengthen the training, they will not be able to grow at all. By the way, I have an idea in my mind. I could go to the mountain to gather some herbs, brew them into a bath for them to relieve their fatigue and enhance the vitality and strength of their cells. Additionally, I could prepare some herbs for strengthening the body to be consumed as tea. That's settled. Xingchen hopped back home while Lei Tian watched as Xingchen ignored him and ran straight home, feeling a pang of jealousy, thinking, once I become stronger, just wait and see how I deal with you, kid. When the members of the Tianxing team returned home, their parents were startled to see their sons, who had been walking and then suddenly faltered. They quickly asked, Xiaofeng, what happened to you? You are drenched in sweat and can barely stand. Lei Lifeng said, Mom, I am learning martial arts from boss Xingchen, and practicing horse stance is exhausting. Lei Feng's mother replied discontentedly, what martial arts are you learning? That kid Xingchen knows nothing about martial arts. Aren't you just asking for trouble? Don't play with him anymore. Lei Lifeng replied, no way. Lei Lifeng said, Mom, please don't be angry. I feel like I've become even stronger. This afternoon, Senior Xingchen will teach us the combat techniques of the Tianxing team. Mom Lei expressed her dissatisfaction, saying, I don't know what kind of enchantment that Xingchen has cast on you kids. You listen to him more than you listen to your mother. Lei Lifeng proudly stated, that is the charm of Senior Xingchen. Mom Lei interjected, all right, time to eat. The other members of the Tianxing team, along with their parents, looked at their exhausted son, cursing Xingchen for mistreatment. At noon, after finishing lunch, Xingchen bounced over to the large tree where they trained in the morning, being the first to arrive and noticing that no one else was there yet. Using his mind, Xingchen called out, Xiao Xilan, can you hear me? Xiao Xilan replied, Brother Xiao Xilan. Xingchen instructed, Xiao Xilan, scan the edges of Longgu village and see if there are any herbs that can alleviate fatigue, enhance cellular activity and strength, which can be used as tea or for bathing. Xiao Xilan responded, Brother, please wait a moment while I scan. After several seconds went by, Xiao Xilan reported, Brother, in the southwest of Longgu village, there is an herb called Xinyan grass that can be used for bathing and has the effect of alleviating fatigue and strengthening the body. The method is to crush the Xinyan grass and put its extract into the bathwater. Its roots can also be used to brew tea, making it a valuable herb for health enhancement. Xingchen pondered, Xiao Xilan, does the Xinyan grass look like rice seedlings about 10 centimeters tall? Xiao Xilan answered, yes, brother. Xingchen remarked, you mentioned it's a precious health-enhancing herb. In the past, I burned it a few times, but it grows back after 2 or 3 months, and can flourish again in 5 to 6 months, demonstrating remarkable vitality. Xiao Xilan added, as long as you don't harm its roots, its vitality is indeed quite strong. Xingqian concluded, having health-enhancing herbs nearby saves us a lot of trouble. Suddenly Xingqian heard Lei Tian's voice. Xingqian, you're here quite early. Xingqian quickly said to Xiao Xilan, Xiao Xilan, let's continue this conversation later. Xiao Xilan replied, okay, brother. Xingqian then asked Lei Tian, Xiao Tian is the leader, I should arrive a bit earlier. How was this morning's training? Lei Tian replied, it was exhausting as usual. After waiting for half an hour, all the members of the Tianqing team finally arrived, and Xingqian announced, now that everyone is here, I will teach you all combat techniques. Suddenly a tender voice piped up, Xingqian brother, I want to learn too. Hearing this, Xingqian felt a headache coming on. He turned to see Lingxian pulling Xiao Lingxiang over in his direction, and he said, Xiao Lingxiang, you're still young. Wait until you grow up, and then brother will teach you, okay? Xiao Lingxiang retorted, that's not fair. I'm already grown up, I'm 6 years old this year, and not a child. Xingqian thought about it, and wanted to find a tofu block to hit his head against. He then proposed, Xiao Lingxiang, how about this? I have a task for you, and if you complete it, brother will teach you, okay? Xiao Lingxiang looked at him with her adorable little eyes curious, and asked, what do you want me to do, brother? Xingqian replied, you and sister Lingxian go to the place where we used to gather firewood, and bring me that herb. It's important to me. Xiao Lingxiang turned to leave, but Xingqian stopped her saying, Xiao Lingxiang, it's noon now, and the sun is quite strong. Wait until afternoon when the sun is blocked by the trees before you go there, and find a shady spot to start pulling up the herbs. Xiao Lingxiang asked, okay, brother, can you teach me the combat techniques now? Xingqian, feeling helpless, replied, all right. Xiao Lingxiang cheered, thank you, brother. Xingqian stated, okay, now I will teach everyone combat techniques. Xiao Tian, come here. Lei Tian walked over and asked, Xingqian, why did you call me over? Xingqian instructed, Xiao Tian, punch me with all your speed. Lei Tian hesitated, saying, Xingqian, I don't dare. If I injure you, auntie will definitely come after me. Xingqian expressed his displeasure, saying, just throw the punch. Why all the nonsense? If you really hit me, you'll call you brother Tian from now on. If you can't hit me, you'll have to call me boss. In his heart, he thought, there's a creature in the Huaxia universe named Lei Tian. I wonder if Xiao Tian will ever surpass that creature in strength. Lei Tian excitedly declared, all right, Xingqian, here I come. He clenched his fist and swung it hard as Lei Tian's fist drew nearer. Xingqian thought, this kid is putting everything into his punch to become. When Lei Tian's fist was just 10 centimeters away from Xingqian's face, Xingqian made his move, wrapping his hand around Lei Tian's hand like a venomous snake, dissipating the power behind Lei Tian's punch. Xingqian struck Lei Tian's face along his arm, and then stopped, grinning. How about that, Xiao Tian? Lei Tian replied, annoyed. Xingqian, you're cheating. You already know martial arts. I definitely can't beat you. Xingqian said, everyone heard that. You better call me boss soon. Lei Tian stubbornly insisted, I'm not calling you that. Xingqian said with a chuckle, you're unreasonable. One day you will call me boss, hee hee. Lei Tian glared at Xingqian, stating, that day will never come. Xingqian replied, if you don't want that day to come, you better train hard, or it might just happen. Xingqian continued addressing the members of the Tianqing team, did anyone see my punch just now? The members shook their heads, saying, Boss Xingqian, we didn't see it. Xingqian said, all right, then I will slow down my punches from now on to teach everyone. As Xingqian demonstrated, he explained, first your punch needs to be powerful. Stabilize your center of gravity and concentrate all your strength into your hand, then attack the target with full force. Also, maintaining your center of gravity is crucial. If you throw a punch without stabilizing your center of gravity and rush toward the target, if the target dodges, you might end up with a punch or a knife in your back, which is very dangerous. Next, everyone will train on how to throw punches and maintain their center of gravity. Xingqian spent the entire afternoon teaching everyone how to stabilize their center of gravity and throw punches. When he saw Xiao Lingxiang and Lingxian returning with a large bundle of Xinjiang grass, he noticed their little hands were red. Xingqian approached Xiao Lingxiang and Lingxian and gently touched their hands, asking, does it hurt, Xiao Lingxiang, Lingxian? They shook their heads, replying, it doesn't hurt. Xingqian squeezed their hands, and they both exclaimed, ouch. Xingqian teased, can you still say it does? Lowering their heads, Xiao Lingxiang and Lingxian listened as Xingqian said, all right, brother, we'll heal your hands. Xiao Lingxiang, you go first, hold my hand. He then communicated with Xiao Xilan mentally, Xiao Xilan, heal Xiao Lingxiang's hand. Xiao Xilan replied, okay, brother. Xiao Lingxiang suddenly felt her brother's hand was very warm, followed by a sensation of comfort in her hands. After a few seconds, Xingqian announced, Xiao Lingxiang, you're all set. Brother has healed your hand. Xiao Lingxiang said, brother, you are amazing. Xingqian replied, Xiao Lingxiang, Ling, Xian, you must help me keep this secret. I don't want to help others heal every day, that would wear me out. Xiao Lingxiang shook her head and said, brother, I won't tell anyone. Xingqian said, that's good. Ling Xian, hold my hands, I will help you heal. Xingqian treated Ling Xian's little hand and said, "All right, now you two divide the herbs you just gathered into 11 portions." Ling Xian and Xiao Lingxiang replied, "Okay, brother." Xingchen addressed the members of the Tianqing team. "Practice ends here. Everyone run 5 laps around Longgu village. Today's training is over." The members of the Tianqing team responded, "Yes, boss." Xingchen led the way, running 5 laps around Longgu village, then called out to the team, "Do you see the 11 portions of herbs under the big tree?" The members of the Tianqing team replied in unison, "Boss, we see them." Lei Tian asked Xingchen, "What is this herb?" Xingchen explained, "Listen up, everyone. This herb is called Xinjiang grass. It can be used for bathing and has the effects of relieving fatigue and strengthening the body. The method is to crush the Xinjiang grass and add its essence to the bathwater. Its roots can also be dug up and used as tea, providing the same benefits. From now on, after training each day, everyone must go to the southwest part of Longgu village to gather this Xinjiang grass. Do you understand?" The members of the Tianqing team replied in unison, "Understood." Xingchen said, "All right, each of you take 1 portion home. You can use it for bathing." The members of the Tianqing team, except for Xingchen, each took a portion. Xiao Lingxiang said, "Brother, I'm sorry. I forgot to give you a portion too." Xingchen joked, "Xiao Lingxiang, I taught you to divide into 11 portions, so I must have some Xinjiang grass at home." Xiao Lingxiang nodded and said, "Oh." Xingchen told everyone, "You all go home. We have training tomorrow morning." Xingchen and Lei Tian were on their way back when Lei Tian said, "Xingchen, is this grass really as magical as you say? We burned it a few times before." Xingchen replied, "Of course it is. You'll know how effective it is once you use it for bathing." Lei Tian said, "Xingchen, if it doesn't work, you have to call me Tian Go." Xingchen said, "If it works, you call me Xingchen Go." Lei Tian firmly replied, "No way." Members of the Tianqing team carried a large bundle of grass home. Lei Haiyan's grandfather saw his grandson carrying the grass and asked curiously, "Xiaoyan, what are you doing with all this grass?" Lei Haiyan explained, "Grandpa, this is a type of herb called Xinjiang grass used for bathing, which helps relieve fatigue and strengthen the body. The method is to crush the Xinjiang grass and add its essence to the bathing water. Its roots can also be dug up and used to make tea, providing the same benefits." Lei Haiyan's grandfather asked, "Who told you this? There are so many of these herbs in the southwest of Longgu village. How come we villagers never discovered them before?" Lei Haiyan said, "Grandpa, my boss told me." Lei Haiyan's grandfather said, "That boy Xingchen said this. He's always causing trouble in Longgu village. I wonder what new tricks he will pull tomorrow. Is this grass really as good as he claims?" Lei Haiyan replied, "Grandpa, we'll know if we try it." Other parents of the Tianqing team members saw their children coming home with bundles of grass. A few parents quickly threw the grass away, knowing it was Xingchen's idea, and the members of the Tianqing team had to sneakily retrieve them. Lei Haiyun was the first to test the effects of Xinjiang grass. He prepared hot water, crushed the Xinjiang grass, and put it into a large tub, then lay down inside. After 2 or 3 minutes, Lei Haiyun felt warmth throughout his body and shouted, "Grandpa, Grandpa." Lei Haiyun's grandfather asked, "What is it, Xiaoyan?" Lei Haiyun joyfully said, "Grandpa, this herb is reacting. I feel warm all over, it's so comfortable." Lei Haiyun's grandfather wondered, could it really be effective? Where did that mischievous boy Xingchen get this information? The members of the Tianqing team also used the Xinjiang grass for bathing, and the results were excellent. Lei Tian had just finished bathing and felt exceptionally refreshed, full of energy, without any fatigue. Lei Tian excitedly rushed to Xingchen's house, with other members of the Tianqing team following suit. Xingchen was preparing to bathe when he heard Lei Tian calling him. He came out of his room and asked Xiaoyan, "What do you..." Lei Tian exclaimed, "Boss, that Xinjiang grass you mentioned works wonders. I feel powerful, all over strong." Then Xingchen heard several voices calling, "Boss, boss." He looked at the members of the Tianqing team and said, "You all are here." Lei Haiyun excitedly said, "Boss, I feel several times stronger than before." The others chimed in, "So do I." Xingchen Guxiao Lingxiang has arrived. Xingchen noticed that besides a few people, the rest of the Tianqing team had come. He said, "It's good that it works. This Xinjiang grass is a treasure of our Longgu village. Your fathers and mothers can also use it for bathing after a long day's work." Lei Lifeng chuckled, "Boss, my Xinjiang grass was just thrown away by my mom when I brought it home. I secretly picked it back up and only then realized the effects of Xinjiang grass. When my mom saw me so lively after bathing, she asked why. I told her it was because of the Xinjiang grass, and she immediately ran outside. I asked her what she was doing. She said she was going to gather Xinjiang grass for my dad's bath. Right now she's out in the southwest of Longgu village gathering Xinjiang grass, ha." The other members of the Tianqing team laughed and said, "Ha. My grandpa is going to gather Xinjiang grass. My dad is gathering Xinjiang grass too. My mom is gathering Xinjiang grass as well." After hearing what the members of the Tianqing team said, Xingchen thought, even though there is a lot of Xinjiang grass in the southwest of Longgu village, if the whole village doesn't know the proper usage and gathers it indiscriminately, there will be a day when all of it is gone. Xingchen said, "Listen carefully, everyone. Go back and tell your fathers and mothers the proper amounts for using Xinjiang grass. It takes a maximum of 6 Xinjiang grass to relieve fatigue for 1 bath. Using more than that is a waste. Also, if you have time, dig up some roots of Xinjiang grass to brew tea. Drink it when you feel tired." The members of the Tianqing team replied, "Understood, boss Xingchen." Xingchen said, "All right, everyone go home and have dinner." After watching the members of the Tianxing team leave, Xingchen turned and ran home. In the evening, after finishing dinner, Xingchen ran back to his room, locked the door, and went to the training room on the Xingchen wanted to continue practicing the void technique. Earlier that morning, he had already connected one cell with his dantian. He sat cross-legged and activated the void technique, further strengthening the connection between the cell and his dantian. Xingchen stopped and walked to the energy blocks, absorbing one with each hand, gathering a total of 30 energy blocks, causing a trace of void power to emerge in his dantian. Xingchen ceased absorbing energy blocks and began to operate the void technique, controlling the void power to circulate within his dantian. It took him half an hour to skillfully manage the void power before directing it toward the cells. Xingchen thought to himself, "This time, I must succeed." He controlled the void power to enter the cells, and with the experience from last time, the void power quickly transformed the cells into void cells. Xingchen concentrated the remaining void power from the transformed cells to their center. Next, he would face a life and death trial, silently urging himself, "I must succeed, I must succeed." After silently urging himself, he detonated the void power. Xingchen felt a surge of energy overflowing from within the cells, radiating throughout his body and slowly merging with all his cells, transforming his body. Xingchen sensed the existence of his body, unlike the last time when he was in that dreadful place. He quickly began to check his body and found that his strength was much greater than before. Xingchen swiftly inspected the transformed void cells and saw that they still existed. He directed his mental energy into the interior of the void cells and discovered a small space the size of a grain of rice. However, another problem arose. This small space was not the colorless space described in the void technique, but a light gray space. Xingchen thought, how could there be another problem? This small space is not the colorless one mentioned in the void technique. Instead, it was a light gray space resembling the color from that dreadful place he had encountered last time. Being someone else's experimental subject was too unfortunate, leading to frequent issues. He hoped this was a good start and thought it was time to inject energy into the small space. Xiao Xilan looked at Xingchen happily, saying, "Brother, you succeeded." Xingchen looked at Xiao Xilan, who was guarding him and ready to address any sudden events, and said, "We can consider this a success, but new problems have arisen. The created cell's small space is gray, not the colorless one described in the void technique." Xiao Xilan replied, "Brother, then you should continue practicing the void technique and see what happens." Xingchen responded, "All right." Next, he needed to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into his dantian, transforming it into void power, and then injecting the void power into the small space of the cells through the void line. Xingchen sat cross-legged, holding energy blocks in both hands, and attempted to operate the void technique. He was stunned to find that the void technique could not be activated. After several attempts, he realized that it still could not run. Xingchen opened his eyes and looked at Xiao Xilan, who was staring at him, and said the void technique can no longer be cultivated. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xilan quickly responded, "Brother, try a few more times." Xingchen helplessly said, "Xiao Xilan, I have already tried several times. It's over for me. I can no longer cultivate. I have failed as an experimental subject for the void technique." Xiao Xilan looked at the deflated Xingchen and said, "Brother, don't worry. There must be a way to solve this. By the way, you can ask your ancestors for help." Xingchen replied, "All right, there's no other choice," and shouted into the training room, "Lei Shiwu, you bastard, get out here quickly. There's a big problem." Suddenly, another person appeared in the training room, dissatisfied, saying, "What are you yelling about? I've been paying attention to your training all along." Xingchen quickly responded politely, "Ancestor, do you know where the problem lies?" Lei Shiwu shook his head and said, "I don't know." Xingchen asked, "Is there any other solution, like practicing other techniques?" Lei Shiwu replied, "Your dantian is currently a converter and cannot store energy. You can't cultivate any other techniques." Hearing this, Xingchen was furious, saying, "What? I can't cultivate?" Lei Shiwu looked at the angry Xingchen and said, "I'll compensate you." Xingchen, feeling disheartened, replied, "Without the ability to cultivate, I'm just a waste." Lei Shiwu urged, "Kid, can you be a little more optimistic? Although you cannot cultivate other techniques, right now many unknown things are happening to you. Last time you ended up in a strange place, and now a peculiar small space has formed inside your void cells. This indicates that your cultivation path is developing toward an unknown direction, and the extent of your achievements remains uncertain." Xingchen stared at Lei Shiwu and asked, "Are you telling the truth?" Lei Shiwu replied, "Whether it is true depends on your exploration. If you lose hope, the unknowns within you will also vanish with you." An hour later, Xingchen suddenly erupted with a determined gaze and said, "I want compensation." Lei Shiwu, seeing that Xingchen had come to terms, sighed in relief and asked, "What kind of compensation do you want?" Xingchen thought for a moment and said, "Of course I want the best and the most." Lei Shiwu replied, "You're too greedy. I'll give you a time-space ring to play with." Xingchen asked, "Is it the best?" Lei Shiwu answered, "No." Xingchen complained, "If it's not the best, why are you giving it to me? I want the best." Lei Shiwu explained, "This time-space ring is not simple. It can traverse time and space, allowing you to return to the past or the future. Xingchen exclaimed, what? It can traverse time and space. Does that mean I can go back to ancient times? Lei Shiwu replied, yes. Xingchen laughed joyfully, ha. What a great thing. Lei Shiwu looked at Xingchen's excited demeanor and thought, using a useless item from the Void Realm to solve the compensation problem, I'm truly a genius. After his excitement, Xingchen pondered and asked, can I go back to ancient times and change history? Lei Shiwu replied, of course, but... Xingchen hurriedly asked, but what? Lei Shiwu explained, history can be changed, but changing it will create a new timeline parallel to the original history, while the original timeline continues to develop normally and remains unaffected. Xingchen questioned, so that means history hasn't really changed. Lei Shiwu clarified, history hasn't disappeared, it has developed in another direction. The original historical timeline and the altered timeline cannot coincide, much like two parallel lines. Xingchen asked, can people from the original historical timeline and the altered timeline interact? Lei Shiwu replied, they can, but you must comprehend the laws of time to achieve this. Alternatively, someone who understands the laws of time can bring people from the original timeline to the altered timeline. Xingchen remarked, this is so complicated. I don't understand the laws of time. If I return to ancient times, won't I be stuck there? Lei Shiwu reassured him, kid, don't worry. The time-space ring is like a key connecting the original historical timeline and the altered timeline. With the time-space ring, you can travel back and forth between the two timelines. Xingchen exclaimed happily, so I can go back to ancient times and have fun at will he. Lei Shiwu asked, are you satisfied with the compensation I gave you? Xingchen eagerly replied, very satisfied. Hurry and give it to me. Suddenly a ring appeared in Lei Zuo's hand, which he handed to Xingchen, saying, kid, recognize the master. Xingchen took the time-space ring, pricked his finger to let his blood drop onto the ring, and felt a connection forming between himself and the time-space ring. Lei Shiwu stated, kid, just dripping blood to recognize the master is not enough. You also need to bind your soul. Xingchen replied, I don't know how to bind my soul. Lei Shiwu said, I'll transmit the incantation into your mind. A beam of white light flew into Xingchen's mind, and he felt some new knowledge forming inside. Xingchen understood that it was the method for soul binding, and he began to run the incantation to bind the time-space ring to his soul. Suddenly Xingchen noticed that the ring in his hand had disappeared, and he wondered, why did the time-space ring disappear? Lei Shiwu Dao said, the time-space ring has not disappeared, it is right on your soul's hand. You will feel it immediately. Xingchen sensed it and indeed felt the time-space ring, saying, thank you for your compensation. Lei Shiwu waved his hand and said, this is what you deserve. Also, if you encounter danger in the future, you can call for my help 3 times. Xingchen complained, why only 3 times? How am I supposed to call for you? Lei Shiwu said, just shout at the time-space ring I just gave you, calling for the super invincible handsome ancestor to come save me, and I will immediately appear by your side. Xingchen cursed, narcissist. Lei Shiwu replied, kid, the super invincible handsome ancestor is leaving now. Xingchen cursed again, get lost. Xingchen looked at Xiao Xilan beside him and said, Xiao Xilan, what should I do if I can't cultivate anymore? Xiao Xilan replied, brother, although you can't cultivate, you can still exercise to constantly surpass yourself and strengthen yourself. Xingchen thought for a moment and said, Xiao Xilan, you're right. Since I can't cultivate right now, I should exercise. Take me to the gravity room, Xiao Xilan. Xiao Xilan nodded and said, okay, brother, just follow me. Xingchen followed Xiao Xilan to the gravity room. Upon entering, he saw that the gravity room was as large as a basketball court. Xiao Xilan asked, brother, how many times the gravity should we set? Xingchen said, 10 times. Xiao Xilan shook her head and said, brother, with your current physical condition, you can't withstand 10 times the gravity. Xingchen asked in confusion, then how many times of gravity can I withstand? Xiao Xilan replied, 1 time. Xingchen said, then let's go with 1 time. Xiao Xilan opened the gravity room, setting it to 1 time gravity. With a thud, Xingchen fell to the ground, unable to stand, feeling as if he was pressed down by hundreds of pounds of gravity. Xingchen looked at Xiao Xilan, who seemed unaffected, and asked, is this really only 1 time gravity? It feels like at least 3 or 4 times the gravity. Xiao Xilan replied, that's because your physical condition is too poor, brother. You must strengthen your training and constantly surpass yourself to evolve your body. Xingchen struggled to sit up and said, all right, Xiao Xilan. He slowly stood up, taking 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, and then thud, he fell down, crying out, ah, it hurts so much. Xiao Xilan shouted, brother, keep it up. Xingchen looked in Xiao Xilan's direction and thought, if such a small body as Xiao Xilan can withstand 1 time gravity, why can't I? He shouted, I can do it too. Xingchen got back up and continued to walk, falling repeatedly, the pain penetrating to his bones, yet he stood up time and time again. After training in the gravity room for 2 hours, Xingchen could now manage to walk for more than 10 minutes before falling down, circling around the gravity room. With a thud, Xingchen fell again, crying out in pain, ah, it hurts so much. Suddenly Xingqian felt the internal space of the modified void cells. A stream of energy flowed out from the small space, quickly reaching the injured area. Seeing Xingqian fall with blood flowing from his knee, Xiao Xilan hurriedly said, "Brother, let me treat you." Xingqian felt the gray gas reach his knee, alleviating the pain. Hearing Xiao Xilan, he quickly said, "Xiao Xilan, wait a moment. Something else is happening to my body. I need to study this carefully." Xiao Xilan nodded, saying, "Oh." Xingqian felt the gray gas gradually repairing the injured area, and once the wound was healed, the gray gas flowed back into the void cell's small space. Xingqian attempted to control the gray gas, but it was completely unresponsive, flowing back through his meridians to the void cell's small space. Xingqian wondered, this gas is too strange. Why is it uncontrollable and yet can heal injuries? The void art can no longer be cultivated. The small space in the void cells is gray, the same color as the source stock in my mind. From now on, the void cells will be called source cells, and the small space will be called source space. Everything related to the void art should be left behind. From now on, I will focus on studying the source pearl in my mind and create my own cultivation path. Having decided on the path he would take in the future, Xingqian felt a rush of joy. Seeing her brother's injury had healed, Xiao Xilan's mood also brightened. She asked, "Brother, how did your injury heal?" Xingqian replied, "It was the gray gas in the source space I created that healed me." Xiao Xilan asked in confusion, "What's source space?" Xingqian explained, "It's the small void space within the void cells. I've modified it. From now on, I will no longer cultivate the void art. I want to create my own cultivation path." Xiao Xilan said, "Brother, I support you." Xingqian replied, "All right, I need to continue training now." Xingqian started training again, and after several hours, he heard Xiao Xilan's voice. "Brother, it's already 5. Xingqian replied, "Got it, Xiao Xilan. By the way, is there any gravity device on the Xingqian battleship that I can wear for training, just like in the gravity room?" Xiao Xilan said, "Yes, there are gravity bracelets, gravity belts, gravity clothes, gravity rings, and so on." Xingqian replied, "Then please get me a gravity ring." Xiao Xilan said, "The storage ring on your hand has this function." Xingqian asked in confusion, "Xiao Xilan, the storage ring has already recognized me as its master. How come I didn't know?" Xiao Xilan explained, "You only performed blood recognition. To activate all the functions of the ring, you must conduct a soul binding." Xingqian asked, "Xiao Xilan, why didn't you tell me this before?" Xiao Xilan said helplessly, "Brother, I didn't know this either. It was only today that your ancestor waved his hand at me, and I suddenly received a lot of information in my mind." Xingqian grumbled, "Why is it always him?" Xiao Xilan, "What new information did you get?" Xiao Xilan thought for a moment and said, "Brother, a lot of it. I couldn't keep up with everything." Xingqian said, "Then let's first bind the storage ring's soul." Following the soul binding method taught by his ancestor, Lei Shiwu, Xingqian began the binding process. After a successful binding, he was shocked by the vast space of the storage ring. It was incredibly large, comparable to the entire Dragon Valley village where Xingqian lived. The storage ring only gained one new function, the gravity function. Xingqian received additional information in his mind, learning that the storage ring is a level 1 ring with higher levels, offering more functions. Xingqian learned from the information that the gravity function of the ring can currently be adjusted up to 100 times equal to the gravity in the gravity room. Xingqian said, "Xiao Xilan, I'm going out. I still need to lead the members of the Tianxing team in training." He exited the Xingqian battleship and returned to his room, discovering that his father and mother were already awake. Lei Batian saw Xingqian come out and said, "Son, why are you up so early today? Can't you sleep a bit longer?" Xingqian replied, "Dad, I want to exercise." Shen Lingxian said, "Good son, your physical condition is already good. Oh, what do you need to exercise for?" Xingqian replied, "I want to become a martial arts expert more quickly so that I can find a daughter-in-law for you and Mom." Lei Batian expressed his dissatisfaction, saying, "Son, no matter how skilled you are, without money no one will marry you. Even if someone does, you cannot provide her with happiness." Xingqian said, "Isn't it just money?" "Dad, Mom, I have already found a way to make money." Lei Batian's eyes brightened and he eagerly asked, "What method is that?" Xingqian replied mysteriously, "It's a secret." Lei Batian, dissatisfied, urged, "What is it? Speak quickly or be careful that your father will beat you." Xingqian explained, "There are many medicinal materials around our Longu village. I have a wealth of knowledge in my mind, including a method to whiten skin. I can prepare some whitening medicine and have Mom sell it in the market. Won't we have money then? There are many ways to make money. We can take it slow." Lei Batian expressed some concern, saying, "Son, if others find out about the vast knowledge in your mind, they might cause us trouble." Xingqian said, "So what? I want to get up early to train and become a martial arts master. Also, I have my Tianxing team, and I plan to teach them martial arts." Shen Lingxian worriedly asked, "Sweet son, did they ask you where your martial arts came from?" Xingqian replied, "I told them directly that I found the martial arts in the pile of ancient books at our home." Lei Batian said, "Son, make sure to read those ancient books when you have the time. These books have been passed down for countless generations. Your grandparents threw a huge pile of books here while they are living carefree lives deep in the mountains, returning only a few times a year. Who knows what they are doing in the mountains? Upon hearing his father mention his grandparents, Xingqian pondered and said, Dad, Mom, I have visited Grandpa and Grandma a few times, and I think they might be martial arts masters. Lei Batian responded, Son, hearing you say that makes me believe that your grandparents really are martial arts masters. But why haven't they taught me and your elder brother? Xingqian suggested, perhaps Grandpa and Grandma want you both to live peaceful lives. Lei Batian thought for a moment and said, that could be true. Xingqian stated, Dad, Mom, you don't have to sleep every night. Meditating is better than sleeping. Lei Batian replied, Son, it's uncomfortable not to sleep. Xingqian said, then we can reduce the time spent sleeping and spend more time refining the supreme art. Lei Batian responded, all right. Xingqian added, Dad, Mom, I'm off to train now. As Xingqian stepped outside, he looked up at the sky, which was still dimly lit, thinking, in winter it doesn't get bright until after 6. How will the Tianqing team train then? However, by winter the Thunder Palm had already been taught to the members of the Tianqing team, so they could practice it. After considering this, Xingqian ran towards the tree where they were to gather. Suddenly Xingqian felt unusually light. He slapped his forehead and exclaimed, how could I forget about my gravity ring? He adjusted the gravity ring to double the weight, and he felt a heaviness making it hard to run, so he walked toward the gathering tree instead. Arriving at the large tree, he found that he was the last to arrive. Everyone else was already there. Lei Tian saw Xingqian and said, Xingqian, why are you so late? It's already past 5:10. Xingqian awkwardly replied, sorry, I was just talking with Dad and Mom and lost track of time. Lei Tian said, then let's start training. Lei Tian took the lead in starting a run. Xingqian couldn't run, so he followed behind the team. Xiao Lingxiang looked back and saw Xingqian not running, asking, Xingqian, brother, why aren't you running? Hearing Xiao Lingxiang's question, Xingqian thought, I can't run right now, though I can only walk. I can't explain why I can't run. It seems like I can only use the gravity ring secretly while walking. Seeing that Xingqian was dazed and ignoring her, Xiao Lingxiang asked again, Xingqian, brother, why aren't you running? Xingqian hurriedly said, Xiao Lingxiang, I'll be right there, and turned off the gravity ring before running towards the team. After running for several minutes, Xingqian checked the time. It was 6 o'clock. He addressed the members of the Tianqing team saying, the running portion is over. Everyone take a 2-minute break and practice the fighting techniques I taught you yesterday. The members of the Tianqing team responded, understood, boss. Xingqian. After practicing fighting techniques for half an hour, Xingqian checked the time. It was 6:30. He announced, training ends here. Everyone go back to freshen up and eat. Gather here at 7 and we'll head to school together. Students from the natural village of Longgu Village do not attend school in Longmen Village, so those like Xiao Lingxiang who are not in school should not come to gather here. In the future, training will continue like this. If the days get shorter and it isn't bright by 5, adjustments will be made to the training schedule, which I will inform everyone about later. At 7 in the morning, under the large tree, Lei Tian, Xingqian, Lei Haiyun, Lei Lufeng, Lei Gusong, and Lei Cuifeng gathered. They were all 3rd grade students, while the other members of the Tianqing team were 1st and 2nd graders attending school in Longgu Village. Seeing that everyone was present, Xingqian said, let's set off. He had turned the gravity ring to double the weight when he left home, and it took about half an hour to walk from Longgu Village to Longmen Village. They all brought food to school. If they returned home for lunch, it would take an hour round trip, which was too tight on time. Lei Tian noticed that Xingqian, who usually walked at the front, was now at the back and looked quite tired. He curiously asked, Xingqian, why do you look particularly exhausted while walking? Xingqian couldn't reveal the issue with the gravity ring, so he found an excuse, saying, I exercised too intensely this morning and am a bit tired. You all just go ahead and don't worry about me. I won't fall behind. Lei Tian said, all right. Unbeknownst to them, today was already Friday. During the day, Xingqian attended school and trained, while at night, he trained in the battleship's gravity room. During these training days, whenever Xingqian reached his physical limits, gray source spirit energy, which is what Xingqian named it, would flow from the source space, enhancing the strength of his cells and bones. Each limit he reached brought immense benefits. Xingqian could no longer cultivate the void technique, but he still needed to sleep each day. However, he only needed to sleep for 3 hours thanks to the benefits left by the source spirit energy's transformation of his body. At this moment, Xingqian was in class planning to gather medicinal materials from the mountains and forests surrounding the village tomorrow. He initially wanted to bring the Tianqing team along, but after considering it, he decided against it, as their strength was too low. When he went to gather medicinal materials alone, he could also call upon Xiao's island. Xingqian thought, how can I reassure Dad and Mom that I can gather medicinal materials alone in the mountains? And after thinking for a while without coming up with a solution, he asked Xiao's island, Xiao's island, do you have any ideas on how to make my parents feel at ease about me going to gather medicinal materials alone in the mountains? Xiao's island replied, brother, why do you need to tell your parents that you are going to gather medicinal materials in the mountains? You can just say you're collecting some medicinal materials around the village. Xingqian slapped his head and said, why am I so foolish? This way Dad and Mom will be at ease with me. Xiao Xilan, you are truly clever. Xiao Xilan replied, brother, this is called the perspective of the bystander versus the confusion of the participant. Xing Chen said, when we go back later, just tell Dad and Mom like this. Suddenly Xing Chen heard his math teacher calling Xing Chen, why are you daydreaming? Come to the blackboard and solve. Xing Chen stood up and walked to the blackboard, writing swiftly. After finishing, he said, teacher, I'm done. The math teacher glanced at it, found no mistakes, and said to Xing Chen, you need to pay attention in class, do you understand? I understand, teacher, Xing Chen replied. The math teacher said, all right, you may sit down. Xing Chen replied, thank you. Xing Chen returned to his desk and sat down. He sat next to Lei Tian, who whispered, Xing Chen, what were you thinking just now? The teacher looked at you several times and didn't notice. Xing Chen, dissatisfied, replied, the teacher has looked at me several times and you didn't remind me. Lei Tian laughed. I wanted to see the expression of our Tianxing team's captain when he faces a setback. Over the past few days of training, Lei Tian had been thoroughly impacted by Xing Chen. When it was just the two of them, without anyone else, he willingly called Xing Chen captain. However, in front of others, Lei Tian still called Xing Chen by his name. Xing Chen said, are you very disappointed then? Lei Tian whispered, how could our captain Xing Chen disappoint me? All right, the teacher is looking over here again, Xing Chen said. On the way home, he told Lei Tian, Xiao Tian, tomorrow you will lead the Tianxing team in training. I need to go to the mountain to gather herbs. Lei Tian asked Xing Chen, what herbs do you need to gather? Our Tianxing team can help you. Xing Chen refused. Xiao Tian, no need. I can handle it myself. Lei Tian said, all right then. That evening during dinner, Xing Chen said to Lei Batian and Shun Lingshuan, Dad, Mom, tomorrow I will go to the village to see if I can find any whitening herbs. Shun Lingxian said, good son, what herbs are you looking for? Just tell us, and we will help you find them. Xing Chen refused. Dad, Mom, no need. Gathering these herbs isn't a big deal. Ooh, I can manage it alone. Shun Lingxian said discontentedly, good son, this is a big opportunity for our family to earn money. Of course it's a big deal. I'm not very busy these days, so I'll be your assistant. Hearing his mother's words, Xing Chen thought, oh no, plans can't keep up with changes, and hurriedly asked Xiao Xilan, are there any whitening herbs around our village? Xiao Xilan replied, brother, there are some, but not many. Xing Chen said, that's good enough. Xing Chen knew there were whitening herbs around Longgu village, and quickly said, okay mom, let's go look around Longgu. The next day in the morning, after the whole family finished breakfast, Dad went to the mountain to do his work, while Xing Chen and his mom each prepared a bag for carrying fertilizer. Xing Chen and his mom walked out of the house, heading towards the north of Longgu village. Xiao Xilan had already transmitted the locations of the whitening herbs into Xing Chen's mind. After walking for more than 10 minutes, Xing Chen stopped, as they were now very close to the location of the whitening herbs. He said, Mom, let's split up and look around. Shun Lingxian said, okay. Xing Chen pretended to search around for a few minutes, then suddenly shouted, Mom, come here, quickly, I found it. Shun Lingxian heard Xing Chen's words and walked down from a small hill, reaching the hollow where Xing Chen was located. He pulled out a herb and said, Mom, this is the herb. It's called furonking and has a whitening effect. Shun Lingxian looked at the herb in Xing Chen's hand. It was about 30 centimeters tall with a main stem in the middle and leaves as large as a pig's ear. It had 5 or 6 leaves of bright green appearance and red spots the size of an adult's thumb all over. Shun Lingxian said, good son, you said this herb has a whitening effect. Xing Chen replied, yes, Mom, but if applied directly to the face, the whitening effect is very poor, only about 1% of the herb's effectiveness. It needs my special processing for its whitening effect to be fully realized. Shun Lingxian asked, good son, how do we process it? It's a trade secret, I can't tell you. If people from Longgu village find out, everyone will start making whitening products and our pathway to wealth will be blocked. Shun Lingxian asked, Mom, can't know either. Xing Chen replied, Mom, just wait at home and you'll see. Shun Lingxian said, all right. Xing Chen and his mom gathered all the furonking herbs, collecting a total of 236 pieces. They filled their bags, and there was still a small mountain of furonking on the ground. Shun Lingxian looked at the large pile of furonking and asked, good son, did we gather too much? Xing Chen shook his head and said, Mom, it's not too much, not at all. Shun Lingxian asked, good son, how long can we sell all this if we make it into whitening products? Xing Chen thought for a moment and replied, Mom, since this is a small place, it should last a few months. Shun Lingxian said, a few months isn't much. Xing Chen replied, Mom, if these are sent to a big city, I guarantee they will be sold out in an hour. That's not too much at all. Shun Lingxian said, good son, let me carry some back first. You wait here. Xing Chen replied, Mom, this doesn't weigh much. I can carry it. Shun Lingxian watched as Xing Chen hoisted a bag of furonking onto his shoulder and thought to herself, my son's physical fitness has improved a lot. She said, okay, let's go home. Xing Chen and his mom carried 2 bags of furonking back home, then went back to the mountain. The remaining furonking was just enough for 2 bags. After an hour of busy work, Xing Chen and his mom finally brought all the furonking home. Shun Lingxian looked at the large pile of furonking and asked, good son, what do we do next? Xing Chen said, Mom, now we need to prepare 2 large wooden barrels. Xingchun and his mom brought over 2 large wooden barrels. Xingchun said, now put the furonking into the 2 large barrels. After that he continued, Mom, now fill both barrels with water. It took Xingchun and his mom half an hour to fill the 2 large barrels with water. Shen Lingxian asked what's next. Xingchun replied, then seal the 2 barrels, and after a week it will be done. Shen Lingxian asked, good son, didn't you say it needs special processing? Xingchun laughed, ha. Mom, this is the special processing. Shen Lingxian was astonished, good son, is this the special processing you mentioned? Xingchun replied, yes, Mom. Shen Lingxian said, you even said it was a trade secret anyone can see and understand it. Xingchun said, so what? For the sake of our family's fortune, we need to add a few more steps. Shen Lingxian thought for a moment and said, dear son, there will come a day when everyone will find out. Xingchun replied, Mom, it's not like only furonking can whiten the skin. I have many other methods in mind. Moreover, furonking is a relatively rare plant that generally grows in humid forest areas. They can go to the primitive forest to search if they are not afraid of danger. Shen Lingxian said, dear son, we have already harvested all the furonking from that spot. We don't even know where else around Longgu village we can find it. Xingchun replied, Mom, we're not solely relying on whitening to make money. There are plenty of herbs around Longgu village that we can sell. Shen Lingxian said, dear son, selling herbs won't earn us much. The buyers who come to our village depress the prices significantly, and we don't make much profit. Xingchun said, Mom, I also have medical knowledge and can treat others. Shen Lingxian replied unhappily, you're so young, who would trust you to treat them? If word gets out about your situation, it could be detrimental to our family. Xingchun thought for a moment and said, that is indeed a serious issue. However, the furonking we gathered today could sell for at least 10,000 coins. With that money, you and Dad can start other businesses. Shen Lingxian was stunned by Xingchun's words. 10,000 coins. That was something she could only dream of at night, and even then it was only a few thousand coins. Shen Lingxian took a deep breath, her heart racing as she said to Xingchun, dear son, my heart isn't well. Can you really earn that much? Xingchun replied, Mom, that's just a conservative estimate. Shen Lingxian was astonished and asked, if that's a conservative estimate, then how much can we earn if it's not conservative? Xingchun thought for a moment and said, more than 100,000. Shen Lingxian exclaimed, what? 100,000? Come here and help me, my legs feel weak. Xingchun helplessly walked over to his mother and supported her. He said, Mom, this is just small money. In the future, I will earn more for you. Imagine our whole family sleeping on a pile of money. That would feel so good. As he spoke, he blissfully enjoyed the thought, as if the whole family was currently lying on a pile of money. Shen Lingxian looked at her son's intoxicated expression, feeling both amused and helpless. She reached out and pinched Xingchun's cheek, saying, you little money addict, it's dawn, wake up quickly. Xingchun replied unhappily, Mom, I was just enjoying myself. Shen Lingxian said, son, what you're doing right now is daydreaming. Xingchun replied earnestly, believe me, in the near future this will not be a daydream, it will be a reality. Shen Lingxian said, I can't wait for our little money addict to make a fortune. Xingchun said, Mom, let's quickly seal our precious goods, or the whitening effect will decrease. Xingchun and his mother began working busily again. After about 10 minutes, they finally sealed 2 large wooden barrels. Xingchun said, Mom, let's check once more to see if there are any leaks. If there are any leaks, our money will go with them. Shen Lingxian said, all right. Xingchun and his mother spent another 5 minutes checking every part of the large barrels. After finishing the inspection, Xingchun found no leaks and clapped his hands, saying, Mom, it's done. We just need to wait for a week now. However, we face a problem. Shen Lingxian asked, what problem? Xingchun replied, we can't use plastic bags to hold the whitening medicine, can we? Shen Lingxian said, dear son, I've seen on TV and in the streets that their packaging is all in plastic bottles. Where can we find such bottles? Xingchun casually replied, we can get them made from plastic. Shen Lingxian said, dear son, where would we get the money to make plastic bottles? Xingchun thought for a moment and cheerfully said, Mom, I have a solution. Shen Lingxian was curious. Her son had thought of a solution so quickly. She asked, what is it? Xingchun said excitedly, we have a natural whitening skin remedy with no side effects, so we should use natural materials to package this whitening medicine. Isn't there a lot of small bamboo in Longgu village? We just need to cut some bamboo that is 3 to 5 centimeters long and make small bamboo tubes to hold the whitening medicine. Purely natural and environmentally friendly. Mom, what do you think of my idea? Shen Lingxuan, hearing her son's words, happily exclaimed, my son is the smartest. Let's cut the bamboo and make small tubes right now. Xingchun looked at his excited mother and said, Mom, it's already noon. Dad will be back soon, we need to eat. Shen Lingxian laughed, ha. I was so happy I almost forgot to eat. Suddenly Xingchun saw his father walking into the yard and said, Mom, look, Dad is back. Lei Batian looked at his wife and son, whose faces were full of excitement, and curiously asked, Wife, son, what's the happy occasion? Shen Lingxian said, it's a big happy occasion, son, you tell him. Lei Batian joked, could it be that some girl has taken a liking to our Xingchun? Shun Lingxian replied disapprovingly. Be quiet, and listen to our son tell you about the big happy occasion. Xingqian said to Lei Beixian, Dad, here's how it is, and narrated the fortune-making plan to him. Upon hearing Xingqian's words, Lei Beixian's eyes lit up with excitement as he looked at the two large barrels in the house, thinking to himself, this is money. Over 10,000 coins are right in front of me. Lei Batian exclaimed, Son, after we eat, let's all go chop bamboo together and make small bamboo tubes. The Xingqian family excitedly enjoyed their lunch, and immediately after lunch they set off to chop bamboo. Under the blazing sun, the scorching heat did not dampen the family's excitement. The villagers of Longgu watched curiously as the Xingqian family ran up the mountain in the sweltering heat. To the southeast of Longgu village, where there was an abundance of bamboo, it was very close to the village, just a few minutes' walk. The Xingqian family excitedly chopped bamboo, with Xingqian and his mother cutting while his father carried the bamboo back home. After a busy afternoon, Xingqian said, Dad, Mom, let's chop these bamboo. First, if it's not enough, we can chop more later. By the time the Xingqian family returned home, it was already late. Shun Lingxian went to the kitchen to cook while Xingqian and his father eagerly prepared to make small bamboo tubes. Xingqian said, Dad, let's set each bamboo tube to a length of 10 centimeters. For the next week, the Xingqian family was very busy. Apart from training, studying, eating, and sleeping, Xingqian spent his time making small bamboo tubes. Xingqian's father had to take care of things on the mountain and also make small bamboo tubes when he returned home, while Xingqian's mother worked on making small bamboo tubes every day. Today is Saturday, and it's been a week since Xingqian made the whitening medicine. Xingqian and his parents stood in front of the two large wooden barrels. Xingqian said, Dad, Mom, we can unseal the barrels now. If it fails, our money will be gone. The Xingqian family watched the large wooden barrel anxiously as Xingqian observed his father and mother unsealing it, catching a glimpse of them opening the lid. Xingqian saw that the water inside the large barrel had transformed into a jelly-like substance, and he joyfully shouted, Dad, Mom, we did it. Lei Batian and Shun Lingshuan, upon hearing Xingqian's exclamation of success, looked at the large barrel in confusion. Lei Batian reached out to touch it and remarked, Son, why does this whitening product resemble jelly so much? Xingqian replied, Dad, if it looks like jelly, it means we succeeded. Quickly, let's unseal the other large barrel. Lei Batian and Shun Lingxian started to unseal another large barrel. Xingqian saw that this barrel also contained jelly and excitedly exclaimed, Dad, Mom, we did it. Lei Batian asked, Son, do you really think this jelly has a whitening effect? Xingqian laughed, Dad, if you don't believe it, you can apply the jelly-like whitening product on your hands and rub it gently like you would with soap. After hearing Xingqian's words, both Lei Batian and Shun Lingxian scooped some jelly onto their hands. They were touched by the refreshing coolness, but soon noticed their hands were still dark. After a few minutes, Xingqian said, Dad, Mom, it's ready. Go wash your hands and see. Lei Batian and Shun Lingxian hurried to the kitchen to wash their hands. Lei Batian stared at his hands astonished. They were snow white, resembling the hands of a beautiful girl on television, though his hands still looked a bit strange, covered in calluses. Shun Lingshuan, who had not done any rough work, had no calluses on her hands. They appeared tender and moist. Lei Batian exclaimed, Wow, honey, your hands are so beautiful. Shun Lingxian looked at Lei Beixian's hands and chuckled, Your hands look quite strange. Xingqian shouted, Dad, Mom, haven't you washed your hands yet? We're done, my dear son, our hands are all clean now. Xingqian watched as his parents walked out of the kitchen and ran to his father's side. Looking at his hands, he said, Dad, your hands are so beautiful. Hearing Xingqian's words, Lei Batian awkwardly responded, Son, how can my hands be described as beautiful? Xingqian laughed, Then what should I say? Lei Batian replied, handsome. Shun Lingxian chimed in, to me, your hands look like a woman's hands. Describing them as beautiful sounds quite nice, Xingqian agreed, exactly. Lei Batian shot a discontented glare at Xingqian and said, You little rascal, this is all your fault. How am I supposed to show my hands to others now? Xingqian took a small bamboo tube from the large bamboo building beside the barrel and said, Dad, Mom, let's start bottling. Lei Batian and Shun Lingxian replied, all right. Xingqian watched as his parents filled the small bamboo tubes with the whitening product and quickly interrupted, Wait, Dad, Mom, you shouldn't fill it like that. Each small bamboo tube should only be filled to 1/3. Shun Lingxian asked, why not fill it completely? Xingqian explained, Mom, fill 1/3 with the whitening product and 2/3 with water, seal it, and shake it a few times, and it will be fine. Shun Lingxian complained, Son, isn't adding water just deceiving people? Xingqian quickly clarified, No, Mom. If you fill it with 1/3 of the whitening product and 2/3 of water, the whitening product will dissolve into a shampoo-like consistency. To be honest, I think even 1/5 would be more appropriate. Lei Batian asked, wouldn't it be better to sell it in jelly form? Xingqian replied, Dad, selling it in jelly form would be more expensive, and we rural folks can't afford it at all. Lei Batian then asked, by the way, son, how do you plan to price the whitening product? Xingqian thought for a moment and said 3 yuan for a small bamboo tube with a diameter of 3 centimeters, 4 yuan for 4 centimeters, 5 yuan for 5 centimeters. This will be the starting price, and if sales go well, we can increase the price later. Shen Lingxian said, son, isn't that a bit too much? Xingchen asked, Mom, how much do you usually pay for a bottle of shampoo? Shen Lingxian replied, the cheapest shampoo we use at home costs 4 yuan and 50 cents a bottle. Xingchen then inquired, Mom, how about whitening products sold in stores? Shen Lingxian responded, at least 10 yuan or more. Xingchen asked, what about their effectiveness? How do they compare to our whitening product? Shen Lingxian shook her head and said, Mom bought a bottle when we got married, and it really had no effect at all. Xingchen asked, Mom, will our pricing be high? Shen Lingxian shook her head and replied, very low. Our whitening product is truly a holy medicine for whitening. Suddenly Lei Batian said, son, many products on the street have names. Shouldn't we also give our whitening product? Xingchen said we should give it a name. What would be a good name? Lei Batian pondered and suggested, how about Little Cat brand shampoo? Shen Lingxian disapproved, saying, what kind of name is Little Cat brand shampoo? Why not just call it Little Dog brand shampoo? Xingchen thought for a moment and said, since we are from Longgu village, how about Ba Long brand shampoo? It has Ba from your name, Dad. Shen Lingxian objected, no, dear son, Mom's name should be included too. Xingchen thought again and said, then how about Ba Ling brand shampoo? Shen Lingxian was still not satisfied and said, no, since both your names are included, how can you leave out our dear son? Then let's call it Ba Ling Xing. How does that sound? Lei Batian remarked, that sounds fine. Oh, we can use that for now. Shen Lingxian exclaimed, what do you mean fine? I think it's a beautiful name. Ba Ling Xing is such a lovely name. Lei Batian said, son, your handwriting is beautiful, far better than mine. You will write the name for our Ba Ling Xing whitening lotion. Xingchen thought for a moment and replied, Dad, no problem. The Xingchen family worked for several hours watching as the large barrel remained full of jelly-like whitening product. Lei Batian said, at this rate, when will we finish? We've already used half of our small bamboo tubes. It's not enough. Xingchen thought for a moment and suggested, Dad, Mom, we can have the people of Longgu village make the small bamboo tubes for us, and we can buy them for 1 dime each. Lei Batian said, 1 dime each means 100 would cost 10 yuan. Each person can make several hundred a day. That's several dozen yuan daily. Son, we only have a few hundred yuan at home, which isn't enough to pay for them. Xingchen replied, Dad, we can just owe them, and we'll definitely pay them back before the new year. Lei Batian said, for now, that's all we can do. Xingchen stated, Dad, we need to make sure the people of Longgu village make the small bamboo tubes according to our standards, otherwise we won't take them. Shen Lingxian asked, son, do you think asking the people of Longgu village to make small bamboo tubes is too much? Xingchen said, our 2 large wooden barrels can hold about more than 10,000 small bamboo tubes each, so together they can hold over 20,000 bottles. Shen Lingxian asked, son, is there really that much? Xingchen replied, Mom, we filled over 1,000 bottles. I estimate that we've used about 1/10 of 1 large barrel. By the way, isn't there a market at Longding Town tomorrow? Shen Lingxian said, yes. Xingchen said, tomorrow is Sunday and I don't have class. I will go with Dad to Longding Town to sell Ba Lingxing whitening lotion while you can stay home to prepare it, Mom. Shen Lingxian complained, what are you 2 men doing selling Ba Lingxing whitening lotion? It should be us women. Xingchen listened to his mother's words and thought, that's true. If Mom uses Ba Lingxing whitening lotion for a bath today, we might have a more successful sale in town tomorrow. He said, all right, tomorrow I will go to town with Mom, and Dad will stay home to take care of work. Lei Batian was startled when he heard his son suggest selling Ba Lingxing whitening lotion. As a man, what kind of image would that be? The mindset of rural people is very different from that of city dwellers. Lei Batian praised Xingchen, saying, son, that's a great idea. If I went to sell Ba Lingxing whitening lotion surrounded by a bunch of women, your mother would definitely be angry. Shen Lingxian said, you still have some self-awareness. Not bad, keep it up. Lei Batian asked, by the way, son, how many bottles of Ba Lingxing whitening lotion are you planning to take to town tomorrow? Xingchen thought for a moment and replied, about 100 bottles. Lei Batian asked in confusion, son, why not take more? 100 bottles won't be enough to sell. Xingchen explained, Dad, we're just starting. 100 bottles is already sufficient. Scarcity increases value. With the market in short supply, we can slowly raise the price of Ba Lingxing whitening lotion, allowing us to earn more. Upon hearing Xingchen's words, Lei Batian realized his son was quite the little businessman. He asked, son, are you still a 3rd grader? Xingchen replied, Dad, since I gained a lot of knowledge, I understand many things. I am no longer just an ordinary 3rd grader. Shen Lingxian joked, a little businessman, ha. Xingchen said, Mom, this is called wisdom, not being. Shen Lingxian said, all right, it is wisdom. Our clever son is the smartest. Xingchen stated, Mom, to ensure better sales tomorrow, you should take a bath with Ba Lingxing whitening lotion today. Shen Lingxian agreed. Okay, I will listen to you, dear. Xingchen added, by the way, Mom, I'm going to deliver some Ba Lingxing whitening lotion to Annie. Last time she saw my skin had become fairer. I told her I used whitening products and she asked me for some, but I didn't have any at the time. Now that I have it, I'll take it to her. Shen Lingxian said, all right. Xingchen delivered Ba Lingxing whitening lotion to Annie and also to the people from the Tianqing team. The news about Xingchen's family's Ba Lingxing whitening lotion quickly spread throughout Longgu village. Many women and girls from Longgu village came to Xing Chen's home asking for some. Seeing that they were from Longgu village, Xing Chen gave each of them a bottle. Before Xing Chen even sold the Ba Lingxing whitening lotion, he had already lost dozens of bottles. He felt heartbroken and took the opportunity to explain to the women of Longgu village how he needed a large number of small bamboo tubes, and they could make them for 10 cents each. The next day, early in the morning, Shin Lingxian and Xing Chen rushed to Longmin village to catch a ride to Longding town. Sitting on the bus to Longding town, Xing Chen said, "Mom, this is the second time I've been to Longding town since I became sensible." Shin Lingxian said, "Good son, when our family has money, how about we move to Longding town?" Xing Chen replied, "Mom, I still think Longgu village is better. It has mountains and rivers, and the environment is beautiful, making it the best place to build a house. Grandpa and Grandma's house is built on a big tree with a small river beside it. The river flows down from the waterfall not far from Grandpa and Grandma's house, where little fish swim happily, surrounded by many tall ancient trees." On the bus, an old man sitting near Xing Chen and his mother noticed a large and small bag under their seats and curiously asked, "Are you two selling something in Longding town?" Xing Chen turned and saw that it was an old man who owned a small shop in Longmin village not far from the school, where there was a television. Xing Chen often went to his shop to watch TV before. Xing Chen said, "Oh, it's Grandpa Wang. We're not selling anything special, just making some small gadgets. I don't know if they'll sell for money." Grandpa Wang said, "Little brat, it looks like your bag is filled with small bamboo tubes." Xing Chen replied, "That's right, Grandpa Wang, the bag contains small bamboo tubes." Grandpa Wang asked, "It can't be just small bamboo tubes, can it?" Xing Chen responded, "Well, Mom, and I mainly intend to sell what is inside the bamboo tubes in town." Grandpa Wang curiously asked, "What is it, little brat? Can you let Grandpa take a look?" Xing Chen noticed that there were women and young girls on the bus, and seeing their luggage, it seemed they were going to work in another city. He noticed their suntanned faces. Xing Chen thought to himself, Ba Lingxing whitening lotion can help them lighten their faces, making them prettier, and finding jobs would be easier for them. In big cities, beautiful women don't have to worry about finding work. Hearing Grandpa Wang's words, Xing Chen quickly replied, "Of course." Xing Chen opened the bag, took out a bottle, and began to advertise, saying loudly, "This is my family's ancestral whitening lotion, a completely natural product with no side effects, and it shows results in just a few minutes." Xing Chen unscrewed the bottle's cap and continued, "To prove that what I say is true, we will conduct a live experiment absolutely free of charge. Anyone who wants to experience it, please extend your hands." On the bus, upon hearing Xing Chen's advertisement, the passengers felt as if they were watching a television commercial. They found Xing Chen particularly interesting and eagerly extended their hands. Grandpa Wang said, "Little brat, come here and let me try it first." Xing Chen replied, "Okay, Grandpa Wang." He walked over to Grandpa Wang, took some Ba Lingxing whitening lotion from the small bamboo tube, and applied it to Grandpa Wang's hand, saying, "Grandpa Wang, now gently rub your hands together and you'll feel a cooling sensation. Everyone who's going to try it, please have your paper ready." Xing Chen continued to apply Ba Lingxing whitening lotion to everyone who extended their hands walking around the bus. When he returned to his mother's side, he noticed that half of the Ba Lingxing whitening lotion in the bamboo tube had been used, and he felt a bit pained. Looking at everyone on the bus rubbing their hands in various ways, Xing Chen shouted, "Everyone, how does my mom's skin look?" The passengers on the bus echoed, "It's white." Xing Chen said, "My mom's skin is so fair because she used Ba Lingxing whitening lotion."